What's up, people? Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the stream, and hi. All right, hopefully we're gonna have a lot of fun here, and hopefully I don't blast the mic too loud. I've been trying to check my volumes here, my levels. Might have to bring that down just a little bit so I don't cause any eardrum breakage or speaker damage. All right, there we go. I guess that's good enough. If I sound good, please let me know. If there's a little surge in sound, also let me know. I'm still dealing with a mic that I'm not fully accustomed to. So for those who have been here before, you've seen this guy before. This is a concept model I started a while back when I was working on Lion King for 2019. In the end, all the work I did for the movie never made it into the movie. So I'm making a tribute piece based on concept sculpts that I did, which are very close to what was in the storyboards and the 3D imagery that and models that I gave MPC when I was working. MPC is a company that did the visual effects primarily for Lion King. So this is kind of a what if, and it'll be 3D printed in the end on Form 3, and this will be a really kind of awesome giant gift for Jon Favreau and my art director out there, Mishi McKeag. So that's what I'm working on. So how's everybody doing out there, man? I know everyone's kind of going crazy over the big coronavirus. I don't know if I can say that on YouTube. I know some people are getting censored for saying that phrase on YouTube, so hopefully it doesn't trigger any algorithms or whatnot. There's too much censoring going on out there, but I get it. They want to quell in misinformation too. Anyway, Artemis 112486. Thanks, man, or girl, whichever, dudette. Appreciate it. So if anyone has any questions along the way, please feel free to ask. If I'm doing anything that you don't understand, or if I'm doing anything fast or whatever, feel free to poke around and ask questions. I got my Cintiq down here, and I got my screen up there for all the moderations. So if I don't get to your question for a minute or two, I apologize. I might just be in the zone and just unaware. I don't get any sounds or anything when someone types in a question. There's no notification audibly. So, yeah. Speaking of Audibly, not to plug them because I don't make any money from it, but I love my Audible account. And I've been listening to this awesome book called, I think it's called The Soul of an Octopus. And it's all about cognition and the level of awareness and mental acuity. And it goes into this crazy deep rabbit hole about octopuses and how they think and live. And it's kind of mind-blowing. It really is incredible. And also it just talks about, self-awareness of animals and the way the mind of an animal works, because that was like a big taboo thing back in the day. You can't say an animal has a mind because scientists would be like, oh, you're an idiot, you're crazy. And now, of course, we're realizing that animals are not as dissimilar from us as we would have liked to have thought. And in case anyone doesn't know, I'm a huge animal lover. Really big into keeping them safe, free, and wild and alive. So whenever I can advocate for people appreciating the beauty of nature and animals, I always strive to. So that's why if you look at my work, if you go to my site, and a lot of stuff is animals, creatures. I can do people just fine. I can do likenesses just fine. I'm probably going to do a human after this. Probably a tribute piece to either The Matrix or A Quiet Place, because I love those films. But for now, I'm focusing on Mufasa and just trying to figure out, this has all just been an exploratory experiment for me or work. So there's just a lot of, it's all half done. It's all unfinished. This is all in the process. And it's been slow because I guess I really just didn't have like a 100% firm. I didn't want to copy the cartoon exactly because that wasn't the goal. The goal was to create an original, realistic-looking cloud formation of the soul of Mufasa, using the clouds as a medium for manifestation or a shroud to kind of present his form from a soul into something that's more relatable, of course. So that's where I've been trying to take this into that sort of happy middle ground, which is pretty challenging. But I feel like I'm making progress, and I feel happy with where it's going finally. I have been happy for a while, but it's just it's a lot of work, and just getting clouds to look right and yet have also some sort of that ephemeral beauty and just trying to find that right space. So, moving along. Pardon me. Just drank some coffee and ate some salad, and from my massive stockpile of food. No, I actually don't have that much food stockpile. I have enough. For a couple weeks for sure. Anyway, what does this guy say? Mandari. Is there a 3D printer sound in the background? Oh, no, I think actually what you might be hearing is just a little area space heater I have in my room. I've been trying to find the right temperature as well. It's been a little chilly lately here in the South Bay in LA. So evenings get kind of chilly. Daytime it gets around 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's not bad. But today was really windy and actually pretty chilly even in the afternoon. One of those days if you're in the sun it's nice, and then if you step into the shadows it gets chilly quick. Yeah, so anyway. And for anyone watching, if you don't mind, if you'd like to, please feel free to share the stream with anyone else on your social media pages and ask them to jump in if they're curious about sculpting and they want to see how something gets sculpted for implementation in film, or in this case this is really being specifically designed for 3D printing, but still the idea and the shape was definitely something that was conceived to be a container for a simulation for fluid dynamics to fill a gaseous space so it would look like real clouds. So it basically would serve as a container, sort of as a guide for them to kind of populate it with point cloud data so that it would look like real clouds in the movie. Anyway, so I've been toying around with some ideas about how to kind of get some of this looking more the way I want it to, and it's getting there. But like the clouds are obviously the most challenging part, and also to have it look good from most angles, because I'm going to kind of end it back here where it'll probably just be a big puffy background, and then I might push it inward. So right now it has kind of a U shape. I wanted Mufasa kind of almost leading like a storm front kind of, and have everything kind of pulling back from him or emanating from him in some way. So that's like the design general concept. It's just there's a beautiful dynamic sculpture that I remade that I'm a huge fan of by Antonio Canova, and it's Cupid and Psyche, and I will show you quick what I'm talking about. Actually, I'll show you my version. And the reason why I'm bringing this up isn't just for self-promotion, but more so because sculptures that are uniquely challenging are those that need to look good from every angle and that are dynamic. And that was something that the critics of Antonio Canova, this sculpture in particular, knocked him on. They said like, oh, it's not that good of a sculpture because the viewer has to walk around it to see everything about it. You can't just view it from one angle. And I'm like, dude, I think that's awesome. I mean, you want your art to be appreciated in as much dynamism and movement and from every angle as possible. I mean, if it's a 2D image and you only have one option to view it from, right, only one angle. But if it's a sculpture and it's not up against the wall, or it's not a relief, right, or a bust, not just one simple piece, but it's something that can be walked around or rotated, why the hell wouldn't you want it to look awesome from every angle and have to be viewed from every angle to really understand the entire form? So, with that said, I'll bring over my browser here and let you take a look at what I'm talking about. So these are up-close images, but I back out. And this is on my site, lion-arts.com. So Cupid, the story is that he descends down to Hades to rescue Psyche, and it's sort of, I guess, where maybe the whole idea of Sleeping Beauty came from. It's his kiss revives her or awakens her, right? And then he has to ascend out of Hades, or hell, basically, to save her. So it's kind of like, it sets up kind of an awesome epic idea. I think it's kind of freaking incredible. So I want to do more sculptures actually with these characters, because I feel like you could really tell some really dynamic, really incredible, beautiful, very classic romantic male female figures, and tell a really cool story in that sense. So this is the sculpture, and if you look at the original, it's very similar, of course, same positions, but the male looks much more like Cupid, like a little child, and I was like, I want this to look want the man to look masculine, and I want the female to look extremely feminine and beautiful, and really accentuate the beauty of both genders. So that's what I tried to pull off, and I feel like it was successful. I'm pretty happy with it. But the original sculpture was just, it always blew my mind. I always just thought it was incredible. And so I fell in love with it like years ago. And so that's where I'm coming at, in a sense, with this Mufasa sculpture, is that I really want it to be something that you want to turn around and look at from every angle, or at least from most angles. Probably the back is going to be pretty boring. But I just really want it to have the same kind of notion where you have to look around it, and maybe someday it's sitting on John's desk or Michi's desk or whoever, my desk, and someone will look at it from a different angle, and you'll just see something unique and different that you really couldn't see from the other side. But it still is attractive and aesthetically pleasing from, almost every angle. So anyway, that's my process. That's what's going on in the back of my head behind all this. So just so you know, sort of like you lay down a mental foundation for something, and then you don't really think about it all the time, but it's kind of like your underlying foundation for what you mentally build on later. So it's all kind of a subconscious kind of thing. Anyway, so sorry for the long explanation. Let's see. Hi, Matthias Antoni 3D. Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. I work hard. I try to make my work pleasing. Yeah, it's a great mythic story. Absolutely. Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for the kind words, guys. Appreciate it. Anyway, so let's get back to Mufasa. And I'm going to turn down this heater because it's actually making me kind of hot. So, one second. Okay. All right. So I've been toying around with another idea for this, and just to experiment, and maybe just, I don't know, make myself a little happier with the layout of some of the clouds, because I feel like right in this section right here, it's just kind of been, I don't know, it's just too amorphous. I know what I was trying to go for here, but it just feels like it's not quite there. So, and I was just looking today because we had all these massive clouds roll through yesterday, today. Really, it's been kind of this weird rainy season. Like our rainy seasons are winter in California, and it really feels like it's all been kind of shifted down. Like it's all been pushed down the line weather-wise. Like it just feels like everything was delayed. Like our summer just lasted longer, and then we had this crazy colder weather just kind of swooping all of a sudden right now. Anyway, so I was looking at a lot of the clouds and all that stuff outside, and just trying to observe real life again, and not just look at photos online, but really just appreciate nature as we all have more time to stay at home now. So that being said, an idea I was toying around with is starting to use. So I'm going to duplicate this. So something I always like to do in ZBrush is, if I'm going to do an edit or I want to experiment with something, especially when it's in this case where you don't have to be precious with everything. You don't think like, oh my god, it's digital, everything's undo, everything is duplicated. Like you can do anything you want to experiment with. Like just try it, right? So what I love to do is often duplicate a piece of a model, and then just make it invisible, and then work on the duplicate and experiment with it, move it around, whatever. And then if it doesn't work out, well, at least I know I didn't destroy anything, right? It's like, obviously, and always save incrementally whenever you're working. Just always make sure to save different versions, once a day, or even, I mean, of course, always save immediately your current work, but on the same version. But then always save, incrementally, whether it's a day apart, or, if you're going to stop for whatever time. Always save frequently, but then always save iteratively too, so you don't have just one file, but you have many of the same project along its different paths. If you ever need to, I've found sometimes where I've realized like I merged two subtools together, two objects together, or certain things where then either an art director or myself will be like, oh my god, I should separate these again, but they all had separate UVs or whatever, or they didn't have UVs yet, but I still just wanted them as separate objects, and they had, whatever, for whatever reason you want to pull things apart again. It's always great to like save iteratively, obviously, because anyway, sorry, I'm repeating myself a lot. So, insert mesh brush. I just want to go with spheres, I guess. So this is what I was thinking. So isolate this guy. I mean, the swirl's pretty easy to get back, whatever. So what I'm going to do here is actually I'm going to ZBrush it very quickly. Set this up. All right. and just go for a lower count polygon-wise, because we're at 3 million with this thing. It's crazy high because I Dynamesh it. And it'll probably get that high again, but I'm going to put a bunch of insert spheres around this guy to kind of create like a lot, just to kind of create like a speckling. So when you look at clouds and you see like their silhouette, their outline, they often have incredibly fine, almost like furry, you know, very mountainous, like little ridges, of course, of all the different puffs of cloud that kind of pull out from them. And that's hard to replicate in sculpture unless you're actually sort of sprinkling or kind of doing a more, when it comes to sculpture, you have to figure out shortcuts or ways to emulate fine detail without going through like a whole simulation where you're actually calculating, you know, a VDM, which even then will get a VDM is what's it stand for? Variable or volumetric data database. I forget what it stands for. It's been a while. I don't work in that department anyway. It's a whole other, that's flood dynamics and effects department. But anyway, you take a point cloud, right? For point cloud meaning it's just 3D points all filling a space, a cavity, or a form in like Houdini primarily. And then you have those meshed, right? So that it creates a polygon mesh. So it uses points of data in 3D space, like almost like vertices, right? There's no polygons there. It's just saying this is the form and this will be rendered at render time. This is what it will look like, but it doesn't have a polygonal form like this. So to replicate that, you could do like a really high resolution meshing of that point cloud, and determining your resolution of mesh, you'll get a certain level of detail from that point cloud. But it's not as much usually artistically driven as it is more of a simulation. And I know there's people who are Houdini geniuses and they can probably art direct a point cloud to an insanely fine degree, but a shortcut to that would be creating a sculpted container like this where they can then populate it with all those points. But now I'm working backwards from that, right? I'm creating the container first, but I want it to look like clouds. So rather than trying to hunt down VDMs or VDBs, I forget what they're called. Anyway, volumetric point cloud data that's meshed. Instead of trying to find that stuff and have it sort of be like what I want, but then I'm still gonna have to work on it, I'm just starting from scratch. So this is taking forever to ZBrush. I think it's still doing it too high. Anyway, so we'll see what happens. I'm sorry, this is taking forever. Sorry, so questions here. Matthias is asking, where am I from? What do you mean? Like, I'm here in LA. I was born in America, proud citizen. I was born in Pennsylvania. Lancaster County, Amish country of all places, like the most random place to be from, I guess, when it comes to my ethnic background, if that's what you mean. My ethnic background is Spanish. Great-grandparents were from Spain. Immigrated to Central America. My parents moved up from there. They came as legal, hardworking immigrants, university graduates back in the 70s, and worked hard to make a better life for my sister and I. But yeah, if anyone asks where I'm from, I'm an American. I'm a proud American. No matter who's president, I love our country. I think too many people are looking to divide everything up, and it's really getting stupid out there. Especially now in this time, I think we all need to come together. Whoever's president, I think they'd all be having a hard time with this. There's like nothing that's like this that's ever happened before, really, and at this scale, on this level, with this specific type of problem. So I know everyone wants to hate on Trump, but I don't think that really helps anything at this point. I'm not saying he's perfect at all either, but no one's perfect. But I think there's a point where anger just becomes stupid and pointless, and it doesn't help anybody. It just hurts you and the people that you affect with it. Anyway, so don't want to get too political. It's not helpful either. I'm just saying I'm more for peace than it is for just fighting amongst each other, because we're all in this together, and I think that we need to focus more on being kind to each other and trying to look for commonalities rather than differences so much. I think that's really important. So I'm very much a pro-peace kind of guy, but it's like that phrase, if you want peace, prepare for war. So you got to be strong, you got to be smart, you got to be kind. It doesn't mean you have to be soft or stupid. A happy medium, a perfect balance. It's hard to find, hard to do, but I think it's important people try to put their brains in that space rather than just hating on each other and anyone who thinks differently than them. It's really pretty stupid, honestly. It doesn't help anyone in the end. So it goes for both sides. All right, so I ZBrush this thing. It took forever. Sorry. I think it's because it was just so heavy, and I don't think I have a lot open right now. Really, I mean, I've got some windows in my browser, but I've got 128 gigs of RAM, so I'm kind of working with a monster here. So I think it was just I don't know. I think my RAM is fine. Anyway, so someone's asking. Cool. Agreed. Seriously. Nice. He's good as president. I'm from Mexico. Right on, man. Yeah, I think hey, for what he's doing it's as good a job as someone else could do. I really don't think like saying Hillary if Hillary was in charge or Barack. I don't know. I don't. It's like I think they'd all be in the same general position. Really, honestly, it's like none of these presidents are God, so you can't stop a virus from spreading, man. I mean, other than what we're doing and what everyone else is trying to do. So just yelling at people is not going to fix anything at this point. We are where we are, and we have to try to move forward together. Someone's from Uruguay. Awesome. Appreciate the support, guys. What kind of machine are you using? Daniel for president. Nero serious. That's hilarious. Thanks, dude. That's a huge compliment, and I'd never want the job. What kind of machine am I using? So let's see. I mean, I guess you want specs. I just built this at the end of last year, and it's kind of I'm really happy with it. So I'm going to try to tell you my computer specs while I also work on this. So what I said before is, just for recap, I'm going to try to populate this with insert mesh spheres and then use those as kind of like that speckling and that little gentle detail that you see, the more fine resolution detail, and kind of add on that. So anyway, you'll see what I'm doing here in a second. So specs for the computer. I'm working with so the CPU is an i9 Intel 9900X. It's about what is it? I forget how many cores it is. I think it's like 12 core, I think. So that's like 24 threads. It's not the most powerful CPU. I know it could go to like 32 or 36 core for this motherboard. But, you know, I had to spread my money distributed across the whole thing. So I didn't want to go too small. Didn't want to go too big with the... I'm looking for depth. That's what I'm looking for. Derp. I didn't want to go too far heavy and spend money on the CPU. So anyway, it's i9 9900 1000X CPU. Have 128 gigs of RAM. I decided just to go full in on that because I'm like, dude, just really want it to be a heavy hitter there. And because I know, again, ZBrush right now, it's my primary tool, and it eats up RAM and CPU right now. It's not working on GPU at all. But with that being said, I'm also delving into the Unreal Engine a lot, and working on, my first short film and another film pitch completely in Unreal. I mean, well, really not. I mean, it's rendered. It's going to be rendered and animated out, fully rendered and finalized in Unreal. But it's I'm creating the characters and environments in ZBrush and Maya, and then I'm learning rigging right now and animation in Maya. So I'm just going full on in, just both barrels. Just figured just going to learn this stuff and just really try to kick some ass in it. So anyway, no fear, man. So RAM 128 gigs. So speaking of Unreal, real-time rendering now, RTX stuff, real-time ray tracing, I should say. It's pretty awesome. So I got an RTX 2080 Ti, and I was thinking about getting a second, but then everyone was like, nah, just wait because they're going to come out with 380 Ti this year, maybe. So I figured I'd wait. I was going to get another card because, you can just connect them and just have a monster GPU then, but I figured it might be wise to wait. So because I'm not like rocking things out in Unreal right now like crazy, and it's all learning process for me right now. So one RTX, then I have like two NVMe M.2 SSD drives as the primary and secondary hard drives. They're both 1 terabyte each, and then I have a giant, it's not that giant really, 2 terabyte SSD, but it's a giant compared to them because the NVMEs are like these really tiny little flash drives basically that you just jack it right into the motherboard. And then behind that I have a big 2 terabyte SSD by Samsung. They're all Samsung brand because they're rated some of the best. And I got like a 27-inch monitor, Asus motherboard, Corsair glass case. It's beautiful, has LEDs, all that nice fun stuff. So do the Corsair Dominator RAM sticks that I have. And it's the higher speed RAM too. I forget the exact numbers. I did all that research and then I forgot about it. Logitech keyboard, an older Cintiq Companion 2 as my Cintiq of choice right now. It's a nice kind of, 13-inch size. It's not huge. It's not tiny. But I found like I can work fine on larger like 22s or 27 Wacoms, and I love the Cintiqs in general. But I had these around the house. I already was using them from before. My Mobile Studio Pro is a new one I use for my mobile solution, so it's still a pretty good computer too, but it's not as powerful as this thing. Yeah. So anyway, that's my computer crap, my jargon. I don't know. I worked really hard to afford this in the first place. It wasn't like I'm swimming in money all the time or anything, but. All that stuff is not cheap, but it's definitely something that's meant to last me a long time, and I can upgrade it over time. And so I figured, if you're going to jump in the pool, you might as well go in the deep end and just prepare for what's to come, rather than tiptoe in the shallow end and have to build it over time. But that's only because I was in the position to do it, thankfully, because I had a ton of work. And 2019 was a great year, man. Like, for a lot of people, I had one of the best financial years of my life. And that's saying something, living in California where it's expensive as fuck and tight. It's just, it usually is it can be tight, man. Margins in as being an artist, as the stereotype goes. Granted, I think we shouldn't really maintain that mentality. I think all of us should know that there are ways to make a living and to do a good job as an artist and be happy. But if you're going to make a living being an artist, man, I mean, VFX is a good place to be. Being on the cutting edge of whatever computer tech is coming down the road is a better place to be. So right now, visual effects is definitely taking a hit as movie productions are completely stopping, which means studios are not going to be hiring us right now or putting us to work unless they have stuff we can do from home. But I know a lot of studios will not do that because of NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. And incredibly, on top of that, I've worked at studios before where you're not allowed to have your phone out. You can't have any kind of recording device at all. I mean, you have to have like a key card to get in specific rooms. Like, you can't, even amongst employees, like you can't just free flow between offices. Like, there's lockdowns between different departments to reduce the amount of leakage and or sharing. And of course, there's a lot of professionals who would never do that anyway. But studios like Disney and Apple and other companies, they just will not even give you, meaning you, the studio, they won't give the studio the work for different projects unless they have certain stringent security measures in place already at the studio. And so, like, a place, for instance, that I worked at where we did some work for Apple was Legend 3D years ago. And in the end, the work never saw the light of day, unfortunately. But it was pretty cool stuff, man. It was pretty cutting edge stuff, and I was really excited and proud to work there. And then I was really bummed that no one will ever see it. But we got paid, whatever. It was work, and so we had to have security cards to go into specific rooms, and we weren't allowed to have our phones out at all. Certain really stringent type measures are taken. So with all that said, you cannot expect to have these companies all of a sudden just drop all that and say, you can send your work to your artists at home where they have families or other people or friends who might be over who could then photograph this stuff off screen, or they could easily share it because they don't have their computers on lockdown. I mean, there are ways to get around it. I mean, you can have a VPN, you can have certain programs that would restrict it, I guess. I don't know all the ins and outs of IT and IT security, but I know there are solutions that you can have secure measures taken for making sure people can work from home, but that's also an investment for a company. And anyway, so there's just a lot, unfortunately, involved in this shutdown right now, which means that people are going through hard times, and it doesn't make it easier for an artist at all when it comes to the kind of work that I do and that many others do. So I hope that this rolls over soon and that we can all get back to work and that some good will come out of this. And hopefully, this will, what is it? The father of invention is necessity, right? That phrase. Hopefully this will foster some innovation in artists, as we are also creative, and yet it's funny, the cliche of how creative people are. Creatives are very creative inherently, and yet they don't seem to be creative when it comes to business. They always seem to be notoriously shitty, like they suck at business. Granted, that's not true for all artists, of course, and many of us are able to make a living through other means or artistically and through other departments. And that's where I'm saying it's like, during this time, I think a lot of artists should, if they can afford to, take the time to start brushing up on real-time engines, Unreal specifically. Start learning that. Start learning other skills too that keep you employed. That's why it's another reason why I'm happy to start kind of kerating myself into learning a new discipline, which is rigging. And it's huge and it's vast. Like rigging. So for those who don't know, rigging is there's many people confuse all this and put it all together in one word, like animation, and that's it's a very just plebeian kind of just basic term for people who don't care and don't really need to know all the steps. But the steps for creating a digital character in a movie is many, right? But it starts off with usually a concept art piece of design that's given to a modeler like myself, who would then take that art. We usually have orthogonals, which means straight on front, side, back, top, bottom, left, everything you can possibly give, as many angles. But if the basics are front, side, 3/4, get the design of the character, you 3D model that character as closely to the concept or as much as your art directed to. And you have all these polygons that form the model, then you have to texture that. You mentioned UVs. UVs are 3D coordinates on a 2D plane, so that you can take a texture, a 2D painted image, map that to a 3D character or a 3D object, and that gives them their color, right? And then you assign materials to that, like in Maya, or whatever package you're going to render in, or in Unreal in this case, right? You assign your materials, you add all the subsurface scattering. That's like what skin has when it absorbs light, but then it reflects it, has a luminous kind of quality to it. You figure out your metalness to your whatever your object. You figure all that out, and then from there, once your look development, that's all finished, then you hand it off to a rigger, right? Usually the rigger is a separate discipline from the animator. So the rigger creates this internal skeleton, which, you create your characters in a T pose, which is like their arms are like a T, right? Their head's like a cross, kind of, Then they create the skeleton internally. So that creates all the joints internally, like an actual skeleton. So it's a rig, internally. And then the rig is also then defined with, you can paint the polygons. Like you can look at it as a black and white or like a heat map. So the whole model is then covered in black, and then you paint white to dictate which bone. So each joint separates bones. So each internal bone of the rig dictates its level of influence upon the connected, encompassing polygons. So you have to then choose what its radial encompassing influence upon each group of polygons is as it goes across the body. You can see how involved this gets. It goes down that chain. Literally and figuratively, and then eventually, once that's all the weights are painted, which is like your color map on your model, then you pass that on to your animator, who's another specialist, someone who specializes in the actual animation, the movement of your character. And that's where a whole other world opens up, and there's a whole other set of disciplines there, squash and stretch, and the amount of jiggles the muscles will have, and tissues, and facial muscles, and there's just so many other things you have to consider. So anyway, learning those skills will keep someone more employed than less employed. So if you have strength in each of those major departments, you will be more employable than someone who just knows one of those. Granted, though, to be good at one of those, if not all of those, is incredibly hard and takes a lot of time and work. So I would never be arrogant enough to say that I'm going to master the heck out of this like I did with modeling or something else. And I mean, even then, they're better model. I would say there's always a better person in every job. There's always somebody who can outdo you in everything. So I just try to do the best I can and keep growing and learning. But for now, because my short films and pitch pieces that I want to do need me to learn this stuff. Of course, I could outsource it to other people, but usually don't want people to work for free unless they really believe in your stuff. So it often helps to just do your own thing and realize you can learn anything you want. We live in the day and age of the internet, so it's like anything you can think about learning, if you want to learn it, you can. There's no one stopping you. So maybe software sometimes can be a hindrance if you can't afford it, but there are ways to take care of that too. Anyway, so sorry, man. What other questions have I missed? Awesome, thank you, Daniel. Yeah, cool. I missed 2019. I missed 2019 too, dude. But hopefully the future will be brighter down the road. Overall, that's when reach apologizing comes into play. You can rig it, so you can rig it. Yeah, exactly. Well, if you don't have a clean mesh from the beginning, learning to rig is so worth it. Thanks, man. Yeah, I think so too. I think learning to rig is really important for a lot of people that they just don't realize it because there's so few riggers out there. I mean, that's the thing I've realized from being around a bunch of different studios now. Riggers they should and can charge more than what they think they can a lot of times because they are in demand and there are not a lot of them. So it's like, dude, be smart. Again, that's where business comes into play and realizing supply and demand. The power you wield when you are in high demand and there's a very low supply Take advantage of that, dude. We live in a great culture that can enable you to capitalize on that big time. You know, if there's a kid next door that can replace you, then it's like, yeah, you got to compete with that kid's lame price. But also, you know, the company's got to be wise in that they may not realize that, you know, you can't hire a kid for really cheap and then expect him to have the same level of skill and experience as somebody who's a long time older senior master of the same skill set. So anyway, so you get the idea of what I'm doing. This is all an experiment, but I think this might yield some pretty awesome results. It's more tedious. It's not super exciting to watch. But, you know, I'll try to move through this as fast as I can. Hopefully not bore you too much with technical talk of the CG world. But if anyone is new to the CG world or has any other questions, please feel free to ask. I don't know all, but I know a fair amount and have a decent amount of experience. Hopefully I can answer your question if it's not related to ZBrush, but connected to the film visual effects world. Is anyone reading any good books while they're in self-isolation or working from home? Like I said, I love my Audible account, so I'm always... whenever I have credits, I spend them on books that I think I like and usually enjoy them. The cool thing about Audible, too, is you can actually... if you don't like a book, if you've gone through the whole thing or just a part of it, or you somehow bought the wrong title, you can just call them up and be like, dude, I didn't like this book. And they'll give you your credits back and you can get another one. It's ridiculous. I actually did it once where there's 2 books named very similarly and same author too, and so I bought the wrong one. I was like, no, I want this one. They're like, no problem, here you go. So cool. Nero Sirius is modeling all day. Nice, dude. I'm saying dude, but I don't know your gender. I'm sorry. I'm assuming Nero. It just sounds like Nero Sirius sounds masculine. Sounds like a dude, but I might be wrong. I don't know. Oh, what's that phobia for people who, like, when you see 3 holes or more, like a bunch of little pitted holes, they kind of freak out. I forget what that's called, but if you have that phobia, I'm sorry that this might be triggering you a little bit, but I swear it'll be a nice puffy cloud by the end of this. I get that, even though I don't really have that fear. It's sort of like this innate thing with the, when you see bugs or certain things. I mean, not even insects as much, but there are like these weird seeds, pods that have all these little holes. And they almost look like a compound eye, like on an insect. And there's just this, I think it's just deep in our lizard brain, the natural instincts that just are like, run away, this is terrifying, this is bad, this is not, it has more than 2 eyes, something's off. Like, so whenever we see these kind of things that have multiple, it just immediately gives you the willies. You're just like, ugh. They did a great job of that, actually, that it got sort of overlooked. But in Resident Evil 6, the video game, if you've played it, these enemies have these grotesque mutations that happen from the virus that they're exposed to. And some of them develop like lots of different eyes all over their face, and it's kind of like if you infected somebody with the genetics of a tarantula or a spider or something, but it went like all effed up and just like way more than 8 eyes in different sizes, and it's like, ugh. It was pretty disturbing. And the game, I think, got kind of shafted. Its stories were pretty exciting and pretty compelling, and a hell of a lot better than all the movies they ever made of Resident Evil. My God, the Resident Evil movies are terrible. The games are way more exciting, and if they would just follow even one of them closely, just make it a 90-minute movie instead of having to go 2 hours or something, they would make a way better film than all the garbage that the Resident Evil brand has been associated with film-wise, sadly. I hope there were rumors that James Wan was going to redo that. He was going to get the rights to the series, and James Wan's horror movies are awesome in my opinion, so it's a bummer that I heard that's not happening now. I heard there's a Resident Evil series coming to Netflix, actually, which, I don't know. I'm always dicey about that. Like, Netflix has some awesome shows, and they also have a lot of stuff that people don't like, which, are brands that were beloved. So, I don't know. Like, I'm worried about the Cowboy Bebop series, but because I love the original. But we'll see. I'm cautiously optimistic. Excuse my burpage. Barnacles, yeah, dude. You're serious as a dude, yeah. I'm going to 3D print this. Yeah, man, that's the goal. That is what all my work on this stream series will be about. Is and I'm sorry that for anyone who's been watching this for a while, and maybe they're not even watching anymore. But I mean, watching this for a while from like the first stream I started doing with Pixelogic. I've just been on the same piece for a while, and it hasn't dramatically changed throughout that time. But that's because it's I'm only working on it typically when I'm streaming. I'm not working on it when I'm not streaming because I have other things to do and other projects that that I just haven't wanted to stream. So unfortunately, that means that this moves very slowly because you're watching it happen pretty much in real time. Like when I'm not streaming it, I'm not working on it. But maybe that'll change now. I keep saying that. But now that we have a lot more time, maybe I'll work on this more when I'm offline. Now I'm just realizing I'm doing too many kind of like nipply looking things here, and I need to make it a little bit more diverse. So I'll try to add a little bit more randomness here. That's the thing, is humans were just such good pattern recognition machines that we often will unconsciously create things in very cool, very close. Like if you're supposed to distribute something and someone says draw a bunch of dots, you have to really consciously tell yourself to make them not repetitive. You know, you have to be like, oh, let's make one bigger here and smaller here, and not make them equal distances apart, because that's like a natural thing that we tend to do as humans. And I found that that's very true when it comes to things like this. You just get in the rhythm, and it becomes very easy to become a little bit of a robot and very methodical and kind of factory-like. And when it comes to great art, that's a really dumb idea, but it's also not conscious. So I have to work sometimes to be like, no, wait, break it up more. Especially when my attention's divided a little bit more like this, where I'm talking and my brain's in a couple different places. So yeah. Because it's interesting. Like there's such a design language to elements of nature when you look at them. It's like everything has a certain type of style and language that's specific to it. Whether it's an animal, the clouds, water, everything just has like. I know it's just oxymoron, like it's kind of like duh, but I mean, it's when you stop and think about it simply from a design standpoint, it's interesting how things all have their specific language, you know, and they all kind of can evolve into each other in some ways or have similarities when they blend. But you know, there's very few things in the world that seem to have on them their own mass, very diverse, extremely different elements of design language. You know, there's a lot of uniformity in the exterior of elements of nature. There's this consistency within nature that's just interesting. A lot of things are fractal too, meaning that you can look at them in the micro and then you can see them mirrored in the macro, and vice versa. It's kind of, I guess, it's the golden ratio can play into that too, which is pretty trippy when you go down that rabbit hole. Fun fact, in Resident Evil 6, the name C-Virus. Oh, yeah. And you visit China. That is true. Wow, I forgot about that. That's right, the C-Virus, and it is in China. That's right. A huge action sequence takes place in China, and it's a pretty big deal. Yeah. And that game, I tell you, man, like, I'm not sugarcoating it or painted any extra praise, undeserving praise, but yeah, Resident Evil 6 had some. It would almost would have worked better as a type of movie. You know, elements of it were super cheesy, of course, and ridiculous, like B horror action movie. But other elements were really solid. And I was like, dude, this would make an amazing live action film. Like, just follow this beat for beat, and maybe embellish it here or there or tweak it. But they did some pretty tight stuff, man. Like the Resident Evil games are no joke. There's a reason why we're at Resident Evil 8 coming out now. Like, and there's a reason why there's been so many different Resident Evils, and they're remaking Resident Evil 3. They remade Resident Evil 2, which was freaking awesome. I love Resident Evil 2. It was such a great game back in the day, and now the remake is just as good. It's gorgeous. So, I mean, the Resident Evil games are always gorgeous. They always push the look of graphics like as far as they can go. So, big fan, big RE fan. All right, so I'm gonna get out of this for a second here. So, looking at it from a distance, I'm already just liking how it has just that more detailed look to it in a more three-dimensional manner than before. Because I do want it to kind of pull around. I do still want to maintain this kind of U shape, but I still wanted it to be a little bit more dimensional. So that was the goal of all this, and I think we're almost there. I'm not going to go too far down this line because I wanted this to kind of stream out. But we'll probably start to puff up around here and then get bigger. We'll make some bigger ones here. And I'll probably still do a bunch of other like bend curve tricks with this so that it's like a bend curve is like a lattice that you can wrap around your object and then have it look curved or follow in a different form in mass without kind of flattening it or using the move brush where it kind of smears things. Bend curve lattice is just a great tool, very similar to lattices in lattices in Maya. For those who know Maya, the Autodesk animation modeling 3D everything beast of a piece of software, which a lot of us begrudgingly use. I gotta say, a lot of people don't really love Maya. We just learn it because we have to, but I don't know. I know some people really are into Blender. I still can't. I'm still resisting, but I did enjoy Modo when I was going between both Maya and Modo. I was like, man, I really like Modo a lot. I still do, but most jobs I work at don't utilize it anymore, so I can't really justify learning more of Modo and really getting better with it because Maya is more of the standard still. Someone says, was that a puppy collar we heard? Yes, you are correct. It was a puppy collar. And I'm not sure where he is right now. I'm not sure where he went. I think it might be a little warm in the room for him. He's all his fur. I have a corgi named Einstein. He's my little buddy. He's about 11 years old. He's getting up there, but he's still kicking. He's still rocking. He's got arthritis. He's a little slow, but he's a good boy. He's my best bud. I might bring him up on camera for a sec if you guys want to see him later, before we say goodbye. Almost every stream, when people hear I have a dog or they hear him, they're like, we want to see the puppy! It's like that meme from Mandalorian. I would like to see the baby. The last 2 episodes of Mandalorian, man, like halfway through the middle of it, I was like, nah, this isn't going as far and as hard and as just dramatic and awesome as I'd like it to. And then the last 2 episodes came in, I was just like, dude, Jon Favreau and Taika Waititi delivered. That was awesome. So much fun. So much fun and just, adventure, and just it felt like kind of Indiana Jones-ish, a bit. Like it really had more of that old school action adventure feel, and then they just went there in certain places with the action and the comedy. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but if you haven't watched Mandalorian, or if you're like not feeling it in certain areas, if you gave up on it, I would say just go back. And if you don't, the middle episodes are you can just kind of forget about a lot of the middle episodes. If you saw like the first 4 or 3, I think you can almost skip through a bunch and just watch the last 2. And it's just great. It's freaking fantastic. Obviously all personal preference, and I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. I mean, I love the original 3. Back in the day, and I think what was it, episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, that was pretty cool, especially all the lightsaber fights. For me, like episode 1, pretty much just the last fight scene with Darth Maul and Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor. That's awesome. The rest of the movie I could not. I don't care to watch again. So painful with Jar Jar Binks. Oh God, horrible language choices there. All right, so I know this all looks kind of just like spheres, but when I mesh this together with Dynamesh, it's going to have a way better, much more realistic look to it. It's also going to be an interesting, finding an interesting middle ground because it likes to mash things together in a kind of mashed potato-y kind of look with this, something like this. But I want to get those tips, those little points to be like that, like points, sort of, obviously, and not just look like spheres and nipples. So definitely gonna have to finesse the settings on Dynamesh a little bit to see if I can get the results I'm after. And so it'll be a mixture of things. I might even ZBrush it again once I Dynamesh it and then project some of this detail back onto it. We'll see. So let me turn on the other. Where's the other? Yeah, so that one's covering there. All right, yeah, that works. Okay, we got the Nightbot coming in from Kyle. Free update. Oh man, we already went from 2020 1.1 to 2020 1.2. All right, got to upgrade again. Let's see what else we got. I'm learning both 3ds Max and Maya. Find Max way more straightforward though. Interesting. Huh. Yeah, I know some people who love Max. I've tried it out too, and to me, this, again, the interface... Again, I didn't really spend a lot of time on it because Maya was just such a dominant force, but Max's interface too was just... Excuse me, just so... It just felt so constrained. It just didn't feel intuitive or natural. Like, the user interface just was not like, oh, wow, I feel free-flowing here, and I can really navigate this, and it makes sense to me, where I'm more... my brain just grasped first the look of ZBrush and like the viewport centric element of it, and then also I guess Modo was just still somehow my brain related to that more, and that UI far better than it did to even Maya's and much less Max's. But to each their own, different strokes for different folks. I know some people just really love Max, and I've seen some really incredible abilities and software angles that it has. I know, and some of those are plugins too by Quixel, where it does like certain like kind of populating of like things like this kind of. It does them really well. So each program has its advantages and disadvantages. And the cool thing is that a lot of productions will let people use Max and Maya in conjunction, and they can talk to each other pretty well now. And yeah, so I mean, it's cool that if people like that they can still go with that and enjoy it. I just feel like for me it's just been a challenge and enough of a task to get familiar with Maya after my gateway drug of ZBrush, that learning Max or something else would just be painful, extremely mentally painful for me. But luckily, like I said, we can all do about the same kind of work with either Maya or Max or Modo. Or some people in the last startup I was at, they were using some guy was using Lightwave, and I know some game designers and directors that I really respect. They use Lightwave still too to this day, which is cool. I mean, it's just, but it's also just like, man, you heard about Lightwave like back in the day, like back when I was a kid, I was hearing about Lightwave, and now to hear about that program is just like, really? Okay. Cool. It's awesome. Again, you can still do the same kind of work in the end, and it all relates pretty well. It all can be shared. But it's a lot of productions, a lot of houses will be like, well, can't you use Maya, or can't you use, they don't have to invest in another piece of software, another seat, something that they may have to have IT and support for. If they can all have everyone speaking the same language in general, it's obviously more to their pleasure if people can use the same software. All right, almost there. So I'm just trying to cover up a little bit more of this clear space right up here, and then I'm gonna Dynamesh this sucker and see what it looks like. Where was this guy? Turn that off. All right, so I'm gonna bring this one closer. Try to keep my stack a little bit more logical, so it doesn't make it hard to go back and forth between those. Yeah, there we go. got a decent crowd. Again, questions. Anybody got any questions? Any topics of choice? Anyone here that Universal is going to be releasing their movies to stream, all their new movies that are either in theaters right now or are going to be coming out in April? They'll be online, I guess, via, I'm assuming the streaming services like Prime or Hulu. I don't know about Netflix, but I think probably Amazon Prime and maybe like PlayStation Network, I'm guessing, for $20. You know, and I said this. I put the link on my Facebook page the other day, or today, I guess actually, and some friends were just like, "Oh, $20 for one movie, for one rental. That's crazy. I could walk into a theater for that price." But yeah, but theaters are closing down if not already, and it's just not responsible to go to them anymore, even if they're open. So there's that. But the other side of it is I'm a movie junkie too. So if there's anything that I think looks good, I'm going to go see it. But I'm also really picky and really critical. But with that being said, just think about the actual economics of this for a second, right? So if you can rent a movie at home, like you do with a lot of other things, if you rent or stream movies off of Prime or, you know, wherever else you rent movies from, like Apple TV, I guess, whatever. All right, you spend $20, you get a whole movie that you can watch on repeat for 24 hours, first of all. All right. And then you can also have anyone who's sharing your account stream the same movie at home for themselves. And if you have a friend or a partner or your husband or wife or kids and they want to watch the same movie, you can watch it over and over for 24 hours on that same purchase on your TV at home. So if you're ever going to go to the movies and take more than yourself to the movies, this is a crazy good value when you really think about it for a brand new movie. If you don't really miss or care for the fact that you're not seeing it on a gigantic screen with a whole bunch of other random people and your friend or two. So I don't know. I'm like, dude, I'm going to rent some movies that I've wanted to go see at the theater, but I haven't because of what's going on with the virus. So I'm just like, dude, that's actually pretty generous of them, I think, because they know the way the system works, that people are going to be able to share them with their friends and have a big couch party, and everyone who's over or anyone you live with who wants to watch a movie can watch it with you for free. Or if you wanted to split the cost and be lame, be like, I want $10. I mean, still, again, $10 for a new movie to rent. It's like, that's less than a ticket, man. You know, if you're going to the movies, that's such a great gateway of control for the film distributors, right? Because they know the majority of people, except for those kids who are sneaking into the theaters, shame on you, we all did it. They know that everyone who walks in the theater has to buy a ticket for the most part. So that's a guaranteed number, general number, plus then, of course, concessions for the actual theater. So anyway, so it's a huge value. I mean, it's a huge savings if you really want to watch the movies at home. It's a huge win for the consumer in the end. That's what I'm saying. It's a big win for the audience. Not as much of a win for the film companies, for the distribution and film houses. But again, it's better like they make some money on their films out right now rather than have to delay everything and be unsure of when they're actually going to make that profit down the road, or if they will, because it's such a weird thing now to have to delay everything like this, and where it's like, how do you delay marketing for films that you had scheduled long in advance, and now you have to then couple that with marketing for other films that you're going to have coming out around the same time that probably were done, completed filming and production, post-production, and they're just available now, and you have to delay their release, or do you release them all at the same time? And so this is sort of a way to kind of alleviate that and make some money on the side, of it with them. So we'll see. I don't know. It's interesting just to see where everything's going right now, and while it's not necessarily all the most happy, things happening as far as the world is concerned, and as far as companies and small businesses are concerned, all we can do is sit back and ride, man. I mean, I'm not sure what else anyone can really do, any one individual. So it's interesting times, man. It's very interesting times. I'm not a big conspiracy theorist guy at all, so I'm not going to go off on anything. But it does feel very bizarre and very oddly timed the way everything's happening right now. During an election year, the players in motion definitely makes you think. It definitely makes you wonder what is happening. What are we going to see happening in the near future? What is the world going to look like after this all kind of clears up? I don't know, man. Just saying, you kind of have to be foolish to think that this is all just coincidental and that there's nothing else going on behind the scenes. And that's all I'll say about that. But mark my words, I think we're going to see dramatic differences in the world. Politics, people in power, a lot of things are probably going to change over the next year. That's all I'll say, because it makes sense. It really does. Connect the dots. I would say just don't trust the media too, man. I mean, think for yourself. Think for yourself. Don't sell out and just say, well, NBC said it, CBS said it, ABC. Like, dude, come on. Fox said it. I mean, you look at who owns those companies. It's like 3 or 4 major companies own all of the news media. All of it. Including, sites. All your websites. Like Gizmodo and Vox and HuffPost. And they're all under a lot of the same direction, guys. They all got the same directives, same motives, same agendas. There's a lot. That's why there's so much uniformity on their messages, too, Real journalism hasn't been done for a long time. I think you can find YouTubers who are doing it, but they don't have exactly the same type of reach or, accreditation and trust that such huge news organizations like all the major ones do. So that's, again, where I'm just like, yeah, things that are going down now, it's got to be way different than what we're being told. There's bigger things at play. So anyway. Nero Sirius is saying, I still have to work in this virus. Oh man, that sucks. I'm sorry. I know there's some people who are still like being, I guess, asked to go into their job. I mean, it's like, I don't know. It depends on what your job is and where you work and what you do and if you can work from home. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's both wins and losses in that, I personally love working from home. Granted, I'm not really. I've decided, or before this all really broke out, I said I'm taking May off, and I've been in talks with a couple of different places and studios to start up in April, but that was before this all went crazy. So who knows what's going to happen now? Thankfully, I'm okay for a little bit and don't have to rush out and get work. I have some savings I can survive off of and not freak out, which is why it's always important to save some money, guys. Like, don't spend it all. Be financially responsible. Have rainy day funds. It's my parents really ground that in me, and it probably took longer to sink in than it should have, but I'll admit I'm not a perfect person by any means. But when you have money, don't spend it all. Save as much as you can and invest. And that doesn't just mean stocks, but stocks right now, wow, like definitely buy stock in a company you know is going to bounce back, because you will make your money back at least twice as much, if not more. It's definitely going to bounce back, I guarantee you. I invested in Bitcoin, and it's already gone back up from when it got really low. So just telling you guys, free advice. Buy stocks you know will come back, if you can afford to, of course. Because again, it's way beyond, it's not gambling, it's not the lottery. You can be pretty assured that your money's going to be, much valued, much more after this all rolls past. Anyway, kind of went off on a divergent there. Nero, got the savings, cannot work from home, lol. Oh. Yeah, well, if they don't call you into work next time, then at least you can chill at home for a while and not freak out about a paycheck. But I've been there for anyone who's like struggling or knows. I mean, it's just gotten that whole paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. I've been there. A lot of people have been there, and a lot of people are there. And it sucks. It really does. It's not fun. And I totally empathize. And the best I can say is just invest in yourself too. Investing money. That's where I was going. I mean, I'm no financial expert by any means, so take whatever I say with a grain of salt, of course. But I think investing in yourself is super important, and that, again, will return dividends, right? more than just financial, but obviously financial too. If you invest in learning new skills, like I said, like in my case, rigging, just becoming more employable in other areas, right? Or finding different streams of revenue. Like always have some other way of earning money or a residual income of some type, right? Even let that be your rainy day fund. If it's not a lot, but it's something, save that money, right? Put that in savings or put it in some area that it can grow money for you. It's just wise, you know? I mean, I got pneumonia like bad like at the beginning of this year. Who knows if it was this virus or not? There's no way to know. And honestly, people freaking out about getting tested or not, in large part, it doesn't matter if you can get a test or not. The treatment is still the same because a virus doesn't have, you can't give it antibiotics, right? So we have to wait for this vaccine to help build public immunity. So until that's available, whether or not you're diagnosed itself doesn't change how you have to treat yourself, all right? I used to work in a hospital for years. I was biopremed for a while, so like this isn't coming from just random, total randomness. It's logic too, obviously. Treat yourself, if you get sick, treat yourself like they tell you to, as you should. Stay at home, drink a lot of fluids, get a lot of sleep, reduce the amount of stress in your life however you can, as much as you can. A positive attitude does affect your psychology affects your body. Your brain controls your body. I'm not saying you can cure yourself from anything. I'm not saying there's any kind of the woo-woo mentality. I'm just saying science has shown, proven, your psychology directly affects your body. It affects your heart. It affects your gut. And your gut affects your brain as well. We know that bacteria, that your flora that grows in your intestines really has an effect on neurotransmitters and the health of your brain. So there's all this beautiful, incredibly intricate interconnection going on in your body, which is all why we should take care of ourselves. So if you get sick, if you feel like you got the, symptoms, I mean, it could help to get tested, but unless you got to be set up, unless you're going toward pneumonia like I was, and it's not caught early, and again, it depends what type of pneumonia. If it's bacterial, antibiotics are not going to do anything for you. You have to up your health and maybe get like a nebulizer treatment. Go home with a nebulizer. They help, when you breathe in certain drugs, they help open your airways up so you can cough and expel all the mucus and whatever in your airways. But the test, don't freak out about the test so much, guys. It's more so like if you're sick, you got to treat it the same way you would a flu. Eat well, sleep a lot, stay positive. Meditate, pray, take care of yourself, and stay away from other people. That's the best you really can do right now until a vaccine's available. That's kind of it, I mean, if it's really severe and you are aware and you have the ability to pay for, certain drugs, they can go the antiviral drug route, but that's some really heavy stuff, and it's also not cheap. So, but there are ways to treat it, So, I mean, there are ways to treat it, but it doesn't cure it, right? Immunity comes from vaccines and your body being healthy enough to develop that immunity and fight through either naturally or accept the vaccine and heal from that. So, or develop a defense against it from that. So it's people freaking out about getting a test or not. It's really not a valid concern to really get so worked up about it because it doesn't really affect much of how you have to treat yourself. Speaking of that, man, this sort of looks like I worked on the Ebola virus 3-dimensional visualization a couple years ago, and this is almost looking like that in some ways. Like when you get down to the molecules of how a virus assembles itself, it actually looks a lot like this. It's kind of crazy. I had the Scripps laboratory in La Jolla actually send me all the biological relevant molecules to assemble to do the biological anatomy of the virus, and it's crazy how similar they look. What's Nero saying? Just waiting for Florida to lock down so I can do more 3D modeling. Yeah. Nice. So how are we doing, people? Any questions at all? I know this is probably not the most exciting thing to watch at the moment. We're getting there. I think we're just about ready to mesh this together and see what we get. I might put in a few more over here. Kind of get some. Okay, it still does that. I hate it when you draw it out and it makes it go invisible for a second. That's not really that useful, but well, I think it's just the way the program goes. I don't think there's any way to stop this. So that's why I kind of keep it here. But the problem is when you have other things in the way, it'll put the sphere like right there. Boom. It put it on as main when I want it connected to this base mesh. Oh, and for anyone, I forgot to even explain that. For anyone who was wondering when I was going in here originally, when I selected my insert mesh brush, you go into brush and you come down here into depth, and this determines the positioning of where you draw out your, when you pull out your insert mesh, it determines the depth of how far it'll sink into the underlying mesh below it that you're placing them on, mapping it to. So that's why I did that. So that's why we see the spheres here, like this guy, we see the sphere halfway inserted, almost exactly halfway, because that's where this is. So if I push this down further, and now I draw this guy out, whoop, you see just that little bit surfacing at the top instead. So that's what this controls. So it's like, I know you might be thinking like, why am I putting stuff all the way back in here? Well, again, like I said earlier at the beginning of the stream, I really want this to be something that where you can look around and almost every angle you have, if you haven't looked there before, you might see something different, some details. Just, again, just you know, when I can put that level of thought and detail into something, I like to. I always want somebody's reaction to my work to be either their jaw kind of opens or they curse. One of the two. I kind of want that reaction with my work in general. Or they say, wow. I always want there to be a good impact with my work. And I guess that's also partly why, like, I want to see work that really makes me excited. You know, I want to create the work that I look at and think, that's cool, that's exciting, that's beautiful, that's different, but also still encompassed by my interests, which are nature and animals. So that's why a lot of my work is aiming toward that, and sometimes I think I achieve it, and I hope I do. I really just want to get people to be excited and to be impressed and to take pleasure in what I create, and I would like there to be a lot of detail. I love like Drew Struzan artwork. You know, back in the day, it's great paintings for movie posters. I always love them because you might have like, all right, Indiana Jones, you might have Harrison Ford's big head here, but then down here you have all these other little details from the adventure, or like, I forget who, I don't think it was Drew, but it was, maybe it was. He did the Indiana Jones Last Crusade as well. You had this beautiful kind of architectural sort of frame around it, but then each corner had a different piece of artwork and a different kind of snippet from the movie. And I don't know, I just always love like big detail or, you know, big object, and then you can go down to the micro and then see, oh wow, there's thought and detail put into here too. But it's sublimely kind of, it coincides with the larger piece, you know, so you can both go in for the micro and the macro and still appreciate it either way. So if someone just gets a little blip of it, they catch the big forms and they still get what they're looking at. But if someone wants to like really absorb it and enjoy it, there's more to see. There's more to chew on. It's not just one big blunt thing, you know. And that's why I probably don't just do human faces a lot. I see a lot of artists who are bananas good at making human likenesses, and more power to them. But for me, I don't really lean toward that because A, I find that human beings are more boring to me to do because we look at ourselves and each other all the time. Animals and nature are just so much more different, of course, and I just find that there's a certain level of appreciation and beauty you find when you look at them that is not the same when you look at a human being. I think human beings are amazingly, incredibly designed, beautiful creatures. We are amazing creations, and we are, I think, some of the epitome of creation in many ways. But I still also think that animals have just such a unique and different form and existence, and so much beauty. And they're so alien to us, right? Especially if you go into the deep sea, anything in the ocean. It's like the ocean's like another world. I mean, it's really like an alien planet down there. It's incredible. So all that to say that that's why I wind up doing creatures and animals a lot, you know. I really enjoy our natural world, and that's even why I don't do a lot of fictional creatures that much. I mean, you could say that the Jurassic Park dinosaurs are definitely not 100% accurate. That's a whole other thing, man. Some people go apeshit crazy with the whole feather thing, and it's like, dude, an ulnar notch on a dromaeosaur does not mean that they had flight feathers on their arms. That evolutionarily doesn't make sense, actually. An animal that can't fly typically doesn't have a giant flight-like wing. Feathers. That doesn't make sense. So I kind of hate it when I see a lot of artists doing that because I'm a huge dinosaur nerd. And they found some ulnar notches that barely look like notches. So on the ulna, this bone here, not the radius, that is where they found these little notches that they think were shafts for what could be the shafts of feathers. But I will counteract that by saying, as someone who's a big dino and anatomist fan, I bet that if they were shafts, if they were notches that were actually connected to shafts, they were probably like spines. Like, just if you look at the wings, quote unquote, of the cassowary bird, which is like a flightless bird, a really big one. It does have feathers, but not everywhere. It's more like an ostrich kind of, and but its wings, its arms, essentially, they have spines, like straight up just spines. They're not feathers. They're these long black spikes that would basically impale you or really hurt to get poked with, you know, if the right angle. They probably bend a little bit too, I think. But, you know, I mean, in general, your face, any tender skin, if anything was jabbed with that stuff, I'm sure it wouldn't feel good. So I'm guessing that's probably what these like raptors and other dinosaurs had. It makes sense evolutionarily, biologically, and defense-wise. It would make sense that you'd have an animal with spikes that would poke you if you got on its side. You know, that would really make a lot more sense defensively than flight feathers for an animal that can't fly. That's like, why would it have eagle wings if those wings couldn't lift it off the ground? It doesn't make sense. So anyway, so I'm in huge contention against the whole let's just cover them in feathers because we found some notches. That doesn't make sense. I mean, there's Archaeopteryx, right? We have that amazing fossilization of Archaeopteryx, which is a flying lizard, essentially a flying dinosaur. So proportionately, its wings and its feathers obviously make sense biologically. It works because that's what it really did. But we don't have any like giant feather impressions for large theropods. So when people are like, let's cover them in feathers, it's a fun fantasy. But I look at that just as fictionally as I would look at more fictionally, honestly, than what Jurassic Park represents with its dinosaurs. Because we have skin impressions of T-Rex. They're all scaly. I mean, we wouldn't have the whole body, but we have a big piece of it, right? So at least that area we know wasn't covered in feathers. And we have skin impressions from a bunch of different dinosaurs, and not a lot of them are furry or feathered by any means. So I think that dinosaurs are awesome, but they're also like this really weird in-between species, right? They're not fully reptile and not fully bird. They're their own thing. Kind of like marsupials we have today. Marsupials are generally, I guess, under the genus of mammals, but they're not like normal mammals, right? They lay eggs, or they give birth to live fetuses, essentially. I mean, like, you know, like live birth that then the koala has to stay in the pouch for a while, like the joey and the kangaroo has to stay in the pouch for a while, underdeveloped, you know, not fully ready to jump out like a gazelle or a giraffe, you know, or something. So I think that there's just this crazy, beautiful array of diversity in the animal kingdom, and someone's desperate attempt to connect dinosaurs so hard to birds when they're probably related, but they're really different. I don't think they're as close as people want to say. You know, the birds we have today are nothing like a lot of the dinosaurs that we had back in the day from their bones. There's similarities, of course, you know, but I think there was a wider diversity of the animal flora and fauna of the fauna back then than there is now. I think that's just the sad reality of our world, is that things deteriorate and become less and less and less over time. Unavoidable. Species are just decreasing. There's no way to create new species, really. I mean, maybe genetics will get there one day where we can actually just engineer a whole new animal from the ground up, which I think would be more likely than cloning dinosaurs at this point. I think eventually we may get there with genetic editing. We might be able to actually engineer new species fresh from our own heads, with AI contributing, of course, immensely. But I don't know that we're ever going to actually clone dinosaurs, because it just feels like the DNA just cannot survive that long to be reconstituted. Unfortunately, because no one would love to see a real dinosaur more than me. So I think we get a little inkling with birds, but I think they're still really different animals altogether. All right, so let's see what this thing looks like. It's just covered manually in all these spheres. It kind of looks terrifying, but I think it's going to look awesome when it's Dynameshed. All right, so where we got here? Question: one person. Well, I can't use Nanomesh for it. I could. Yeah, I could. But I didn't have this all. So I'll isolate this for you, because I don't know. Stark, were you here from the beginning? I don't remember if you were or not. All right, I didn't see you before. So this is the base mesh. So I could populate it, and then, you know, I guess I could choose to sort of categorize different spheres together, you know, or different polygons, and do like the checkerboard kind of process to do nanomesh and grow them from that way and randomize it. But I don't think it would still give me the same, it wouldn't yield the same results as what I'm getting here by doing it by hand. Excuse me, which is true for a lot of things. It's not always true for everything, because I did like a nanomesh process for my Trico statue, for instance. That was a huge undertaking. And even with, I'm trying to find it here, even with the implementation of Dynamesh, it still took a hell of a long time because in this case, and you're right, maybe in this case it would have been better or at least faster, to do Dynamesh for something like this. It helped expedite the process. So like this is my Trigo 3D print. It's bananas. So much work. So to do something like that for this, it made sense because I wanted to array the feathers in a rather orderly fashion along a mesh that had checkered, like I did checkerboarding to it, but it still was a problem because they wouldn't account for interpenetration. So if this is your feather, let's see if I can get my hands right. This is your feather, and this is another feather, all right? And you want them to lay one on top of the other, and you don't want them to do this, right? Because that's not how feathers work in real life. Like they generally, of course, they could be mashed together violently if an animal's attacking a feathered animal, but in general, they lay one on top of the other, right? And then they move accordingly. So they might get more alert, so they get bigger, or that area of skin is being stretched, and then when that contracts, they get flat against each other. So that was really hard to do, and there was no real fast automated way to do it other than getting a starting point with Dynamesh and then growing the feathers as insert mesh brushes from that starting point. But then I still had to do a lot of manual hand tweaking, pretty much on every feather, which was nuts. And some areas I left kind of as they were and gently touched because I was rushing to get this done in time. So I have to go back and finish it off, really make the final version. This is still just a prototype. I've only printed one ever, nothing else since, when it comes to that creature from The Last Guardian. So yeah, so with this, Dynamesh probably would have been better, I guess, maybe, in a way. But I don't think that it would still have the exact same hand-touched look. It wouldn't have as much randomness to it. It would still be a lot of uniformity, you know, and you'd sort of see that. So, anyway. Cool. Nero, take care, man. Thanks for jumping in. Have a good night. Okay, so anyway, let's see what happens here when I Dynamesh this. But Stark, thanks for asking the question. And for those who haven't used Dynamesh a lot, always make sure that your floor here and your object are close-ish to size if you want to get a really strong resolution. Otherwise, you know, if you make this really tiny on the floor, its mesh resolution when in Dynamesh will be very large. So you'll just have very big polygons defining the shape. But if you have a large, proportionately, if your object is larger or as large as the floor, you'll be able to find much more usable, friendly resolution by keeping this rather low. So, you know, rather low is relative, but I mean, if I go for like 1,000 something here, like 1,100, maybe I'll turn on sub-projection here a little bit too. Go to like a 0.5. Maybe that might be too much, maybe 0.3. All right. Let's see what happens here when I Dynamesh this together now. It might be too chunky, I don't know. Because of the underlying shapes, I might have to subdivide it up once and then delete subdivisions and Dynamesh then. Whoa! That's crazy. Alright, not what I was expecting. Doesn't like it. Alright, so let's quick save before anything crashes. Alright, take off subpixels. Let's go lower. Let's go to like 800. And let's try again. Nope, still not happy. All right, I'm gonna try some couple different things here. Separate this guy, split hidden. Could be that there's somewhat of a discrepancy between the poly counts too that may not like it to do that Boolean process. So subdivide this once, delete lower, and then get all the spheres. Divide once. And delete lower. And see what happens if I just try to Dynamesh this. And let's go lower still. Let's go with 400. Dynamesh. What will happen? Come on, don't break. Ugh. Yeah, it could be it just doesn't like how they're all intersecting, but we can figure this out. There's got to be a way to do this. Let's see here. Let's try blurring it once. And let's go. Let's see what happens if I shrink it. Let's go down 100%. And let's do 300. All right, so that held. All right, so you can see here how they've joined together. But yeah, this is almost, it's holding it too much, right? Because they just look like almost exactly like how I had them, and I want them to kind of melt together a bit more. So there's a couple things we can do from here. Let's see, so we can do relax. That's one that really seems to play nicely. Let's go all the way, see what happens. Yeah, it's getting there. Maybe just try smooth. See what that does. A couple times. Yeah, still it's just too. All right, do a little hardcore stuff here. Polish. Let's see how much that diminishes everything. Not much. Polish by features. Nope. Polish by groups. Nope. Let's do relax again. Let's turn off the circle. I forget how that reacts. Come on. Yeah, because I want that in between, you know. I could try to ZBrush, but then it might get too blobby or too plain. Let's just go down here. Let's try 150, half that, and then re-Dynamesh now. See what happens. Yeah, all right, that's less. It's kind of getting there. All right, let's try 75. And re-Dynamesh again. All right, so now we're at less. Let's do some more relaxation. Yeah, now we're getting there. All right, we're getting there. Bring this back up size-wise. Actually, it's still looking too much like a virus, honestly, like a molecular structure. So I'm going to try to a little inflate. And I don't know. Let's see what happens if I go further with that. Because then I'll re-Dynamesh this again. So we're losing those tips then, that's the thing. You know what would be interesting is if they could make a brush where it's almost like when you take, I'm trying to think of the right material. Like a cotton ball. If you think of a cotton ball and you pinch it and pull, if you make it a little moist, a little wet, and then you just pinch it and pull it just to create like a little pointed tip. It's kind of like the snake hook brush, but a way to do that in mass where it would be like all the hills, the peaks. If you could pinch them all and kind of have them do a point outward from their normal. I'm trying to think if there's a way to do that in ZBrush. just to kind of get some of that more wispy kind of look without having to hand touch every single one, because if you set up the whole hand touched base, then you can just accentuate the tips, the points, like a spiky kind of thing, slightly, and then soften it, I don't know. Be an interesting challenge. I'm not sure if there's an easy way to do that, though. But, alright, well, I'll try smoothing this a little bit more, and then I feel like there probably could still be more high frequency added, but that's where then I can start doing stuff more like what's up here, and kind of have it be a little bit more of like that noisemaker touch. So yeah, maybe I should. It's interesting experimenting like this, though, because you never know exactly what you're going to get. You have an idea, you can predict it, but probably should have added more variability to the spheres, because I feel like there's a lot of that subconscious sameness to it. But maybe if I just manually smooth, yeah, it's kind of getting there. Do some inflation. Yeah, it's working better. It's getting there. It's not exactly what I was hoping for, but it's close. We can work with this. Have some of those deep crevasses. Alright. I'll do another quick save, and then I'll re-Dynamesh this. Well, one thing this does give me is a different whole structure that I really couldn't exactly plan out, but it does give me that loose kind of naturalistic flow, some happy random accidents here and there. So, whoops. So, yeah. And so now I can go and hand touch things now, and yeah, and get a better topography, a better landscape to mess with. It's actually probably better, too, that I separated these two pieces before I Dynamesh them. So now I can do some of this. Get some of this motion, some of this flow that's coming out of away from Mufasa, and kind of get that to work. Yeah, I'm liking this more. I'm liking how it's looking like here too. You have those puffs of clouds that are being affected by the swooping motion of the clouds here, but they're imperfect. They're not falling completely in line. They kind of have this. They show the in-between state where there's really puffy and there's really smooth curled, but you need that interstitial, transitional kind of tissue, and so to speak. So I like that. It's coming together. It's cool. Random happy accidents that would be harder to set up intentionally, but you give yourself the right framework, and then you let other elements flow together. Yeah, that's cool. So that gives me an idea too for some easier adjustments this way. Yeah. Any questions, people? Anybody have any curiosities? Anyone reading any good books? Anybody doing anything exciting during this time? Is everybody in lockdown? Like, is everybody at home now, like day in, day out? Or is everyone still going into workplaces with a lot of other people? Like, I'm really curious because I work at home a lot. It's not like I always do, but I also don't, you get hired for contracts. You work often in-house, and then there's often contracts that have you work from home too, so I go back and forth all the time. But right now I've been on kind of a hiatus for a little bit, so I don't need to see anybody outside of my place if I don't want to. So I don't know what everyone's doing. Let me know. Sign off in the comments for the 66 people we have watching right now. Let me know if are you guys all home working from home now? Are you guys out of work right now, just chilling at home because of that? Or are you on sabbatical until further notice? Like, what's your own workplace like? What are they doing for this whole scenario? Anybody? Nobody? Whoa, easy with the comments. Holy crap, I can't keep up. That's sarcasm because no one's saying anything. Come on. Anybody? All right, Pikachu. Vanessa is giving me a Pikachu. What is that? What is he doing there? Is he just doing like, yeah? What is he doing? I know it's Pikachu. What's he doing though? Is that just like a party Pikachu? It's just like, woo, we don't have to go to work. I wish I could set up a poll. You know, that'd be cool if I could set up a poll for people to just click on it really easily. So I could different options like, if you could tell me like how many of you guys are artists, how many of you are working in another field altogether, how many of you are, I don't know, set up those random variables, not random variables, those chosen variables, so that I could get an idea of what demographic is out there. How many are like fellow VFX artists or otherwise? How many are randos? How many, whatever. I don't know. It'd be fun to get some insights like that. All right, yeah, this is looking cool. I'm liking this. This is starting to come together. This form brush is awesome, by the way. The form soft brush, love it. It keeps the underlying form in general, but then still kind of sort of in between the standard and inflate brush. It really kind of gives things a nice. It retains the shape, but still enlarges them or adds or subtracts to them based upon their underlying form. It takes that into consideration, so that's always a nice piece to work with, a nice brush to work with. It's one of my choice brushes, which is why it's down here. Yeah, I want some of these shapes to get larger to kind of blend in with this really big, almost explosion-like setup I have going back here, and I'm definitely going to improve that too, but I feel like this is definitely coming together better now. Man, nobody's answering. Okay. How do I increase the engagement? Everyone's like, don't get personal, just sculpt. Sculpt, monkey. Dance, talk. So everyone's doing something else. Probably half of you are working on your own pieces and just sort of listening to me or having me on in the background. I know some people do that. They like love to do their work and just listen to people on Twitch or podcasts. I do. That's funny because I do that too, though. I mean, when I was at studios, I would just put on Joe Rogan or audiobooks or whatever, different stuff every other time. But whatever interest I had, I would just have that in the background. Or like right now, I'm listening to music. So I'll always go back and forth because it's like it's a whole separate part of the brain. It doesn't distract me really when I'm listening to an audiobook or music or a whole other conversation. I can still engage that fully and yet do this. Vanessa, I can't tell what the other emoji is. Is that a cat? Is that a cat emoji? Dang, we're already at 9:44. Jeez, time flies. The Gray Jay says, I tend to remember more of what I listen to if I'm working on a piece at the same time, too. Yeah, it's interesting, right? I mean, we all absorb information differently, and I definitely believe you absorb information different, and for me, probably better when I'm listening to it rather than reading it. But that's not always. I mean, my reading comprehension is good, but I just think it's, I don't know, I guess I say I absorb it better because it's a lot less reading I do now physically from an actual page or even a site than I do from listening to it. Because often when I'm working like this, or I want to keep my eyes and my hands engaged in whether it's this or it's now when I have so much free time, I'm like, hey, let me get through my old video game library, that all this stuff I haven't touched in a while, or some new stuff that I've been playing. I still want to absorb information that's useful. I don't want to feel like I'm just idle, just even though it's an entertainment. A lot of video games are, you're not reading something, you're not talking to somebody all the time, you're doing some sort of action or moving through some sort of environment. And I want to always absorb the music in the world, but I can still like put it on speakers and have my headphones in, or my speaker on my phone going. So I'll often listen to podcasts, news, whatever, or even select a site, select all the text and have it read to me by my phone or my computer. So then I can listen to it and get all the information still while I'm also, so even though it was meant to be read, I can have it read to me and still engage with my hands and eyes, whether I'm sculpting or if I'm playing a video game. So so that way I feel like I'm still feeding my brain something useful rather than, that's not to say that all video games are a waste of time and disengaging of the brain either. I think there's certain things that are just like movies or anything else. It's just, it can be a really fantastic, deep, emotional, great form of entertainment. So that's at least what I go after. I'm pretty big fan of single player games and stories that really take you somewhere. Right now I'm playing through the new Ori game called Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Beautiful, awesome. It's like a Don Bluth movie brought to life. It's freaking gorgeous and really touching, grand scale story. Very much like animal centric too, so I love that. I love games where you can play something other than a human too. I really kind of get sick of just running around with a gun and shooting everything. But that's not to say I haven't enjoyed that either. I've been playing a little Call of Duty finally. I haven't played Call of Duty in years at all with multiplayer at all, but I finally started a new one with some friends, and now it's a hell of a good time just to chat with friends. It's mostly because I get to talk with my buddies and laugh and just talk about current events or who they're dating or whatever, life, you know. It winds up being guy time. It's fun, though. It's really fun, actually. You get that hit of adrenaline, that dopamine rush, and then you get off of it and go to do something else. So it's a little bit of that now and then. But in general, I'm not a big shooter guy. It's just this, just certain things are classic, too. Like the new Doom coming out looks awesome. Can't wait for that. Been a Doom fan since I was a kid. Back in '93, when the first one came out, I was a fanatic about that game. It was so much fun. It still holds up today. It still has a certain charm to it in its violence of killing demons. Yeah, so, I mean, my video game tastes spread mostly across action-adventure games. I love the Uncharted games. I love the Resident Evil games. So action, survival, horror, adventure, anything with a good story in it. Last Guardian's probably like my #1 game of all time. Echo the Dolphin, always a huge fan of that. Super animal-centric and very intelligent and does not hold your hand at all. Hard as hell. But really cool, engaging game back in the Sega Genesis days. So anyway, video game rant, video game touch. The Grey Jay says, yeah, I can almost go back to a piece and remember what I was listening to when I was working on it, like a visual memory bank. Yeah, totally. Isn't that crazy how like your memory associates so much? Like visuals trigger certain memories, smells, music. Really, like for me, music. I'm a music fanatic too. I love all kinds of music, but my biggest tastes are like the oldie classics, like classic rock. Not so much classic rock, because that connotes different things, but a lot of classics from like all different genres. A lot of them are easy listening or rock, you know, because I grew up with my parents hearing a lot of like easy listening music, old crooners, you know, like Andy Williams and the Rat Pack and you know, Frank Sinatra and all that. Simon and Garfunkel, like those classic. I don't know what you call that. What was Simon and Garfunkel, right? What would they be classified as? Like the Beatles. I mean, the Beatles are rock, but it's like barely rock, right? Because there's such a poetry and a emotional touch to a lot of these songs. Anyway, I love those old stuff. I go back every now and then and just I resurrect some of those old songs. Judy Collins, like old stuff that I remember from like growing up as a little kid, a little child, hearing that in the house. It brings back a lot of nostalgia and memories, and really deep emotional connection to my family and good times, good childhood. Very emotional music too. I really found that as I get older, I really appreciate some of the really touching music that I heard as a kid. That's actually pretty sad. Like a lot of these songs are very touching or very emotional, but melancholy would be the right word. But I want to make myself cry. But it's interesting how I think as you get older, some people really start to harken back to really fond memories or really touching memories. And partly because because you want to feel something, but also it just brings back such fond memories of a innocence lost. You know, I don't know, of like charming, good memories. Anyway, a lot of music, but yeah, my music taste really goes into now more than ever. It's like electronic, classical, both true classical, 20th century classical, and film soundtracks immensely. And then yeah, just a lot of electronic, man, a lot, and a lot of I feel like rock isn't even a thing anymore. Like, what the hell happened to rock? I just feel like we don't hear much of it anymore. I don't like rap. R&B today, I don't really care for. I liked older R&B. 90s, man, that was great. Hip-hop and that from back then was great. I don't like the stuff now. Can't stand like 90% of the rap. Yeah, so anyway, that's where my memories are connected to a lot of music, and that's where those kind of pieces of music really channel memories. You know, those kinds of genres really connect me with the past and experiences. And then the smells too, you know. Oh, man, it's like when you smell a certain scent, especially for me, like when I go back east and I see my family again and I smell certain foods cooking, or when you're out here anywhere and you start smelling certain mixtures of like hazelnut and cinnamon, or you know, or you taste those certain things. It's amazing how certain smells and tastes and all that, like, they trigger such strong memories and moments in your life that you would not think of or really bring to the forefront of your mind without the sort of physical experiences of some type. It's crazy how the brain works. It's awesome. It's crazy how just sophisticated our brain is, and the interconnections that we make in that space, you know, in this small gelatinous group of cells. in our skull. It's kind of bananas when you think about it. I was listening to this interview with Gabe Newell from Valve just today. IGN did a interview with him because the upcoming video game Half-Life Alyx, which I'm stoked for. I just need to get a freaking VR headset for my PC, for my beast of a PC. It's one thing I'm missing. I have PSVR, but unfortunately it's not on that platform. But yeah, looking to get the index. And anyway, he was talking about brain interface, much like Elon Musk. Apparently this is like the higher up thinkers in these areas of tech, man. They're really on the same train here. I think brain interface is going to be, neural net interfaces with computing is going to be a thing that apparently we're closer to than we know for the general public to start, engaging with it. So I guess it's going to look something like a cap or something that will be obviously close to the head and allow you to think something and get a result in the real world or in a game or, something electronic. And that can easily, once you get that into an electronic interface, you can go in so many directions from that. It's insane. So that we might be entering a new era of interactivity where thought causes physical reaction with something, which is freaking awesome. Like, dude, that will be incredible. I'm looking forward to that future, and immediately my mind goes to a lot of different places, like controlling drones with your mind so much more than like with your hands or joysticks or anything. I mean, games, of course, are going to be, that kind of thing. And he was saying how, anyway, one of the interesting things Gabe's a very intelligent man, and his company is ridiculously successful and innovative. Big fan of Valve. He said how it's apparently easier. I never knew this. I never really looked into it. It's easier to have your brain understand frontal motor cortex operations. So like choosing movement, action. I guess like what your frontal cortex is involved is a lot with your conscious choices and motor functions and all that. That's easier apparently for, I guess, an interface to understand and to control or work with than it is for an interface to... We're talking interface that goes two ways. It's not just your brain controlling something. It's also your brain receiving information. So it's read-write, like a hard drive, right? Exactly like a hard drive in that sense. It's easier for read-write interfaces to go into the prefrontal motor cortex area of your brain than it is to read-write to areas of your brain that control temperature. Because, and I once he said this, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But I didn't think about it this way. So if you were to try to make your brain say, oh, I'm feeling cold now, right? So your brain thinks your body temperature is dropping, or to tell your brain to drop your body temperature so you feel cold. So when you walk in the video game into a really icy environment that you feel chilled, that's dangerous because that can affect your immune system, right? Because like if your body gets hot, right, and you're telling your brain in a deeper level to turn your body heat up, your body does that in reaction to viruses, in reaction to bacteria, foreign invaders into your body. Your immune system is built to create a hostile environment for those enemies of your body, right? That's how viruses, that's why we have a fever. We have fevers because a hot climate internally is a hostile environment for a virus. You can kill viruses with heat. Problem is, a lot of times, heat to like blow up the envelope of a virus to destroy them, you have to go closer to like 130 degrees or so. And obviously, if your body temperature is like over 104, you go past that, you're risking brain damage. So obviously, 130 something, any kind of tissue is going to be damaged pretty quickly. If not, obviously, if it's internal, you're dead way before you hit 130. So to create a truly radically hostile environment that rapidly kills a virus doesn't typically happen. It makes it a lot harder for the virus to replicate because the warmer it gets, the more hostile it is for them. All that being said, it makes sense now to think about, well, if you tell your brain from an external device, oh, feel cold, feel hot, it's going to connect to all these other systems in your body that could cause serious problems. And I can imagine that if someone wanted to do that to somebody, they could be sued to the end of the earth. So there's got to be some really strong... because, man, imagine if someone hacked that and they got into your brain literally killing you through a brain interface. That's terrifying. So we're really getting into that Matrix, Johnny Mnemonic, Philip K. Dick. We're getting into that zone, man, where it's computing with the brain and read-write back and forth two-way street. Awesome and terrifying at the same time because you can do some quick, serious damage. There's going to have to be a whole new set of laws and rules and safeguards, and man, like it's like any tool. It's like the internet. It's like someone who invented the hammer. You can build a masterpiece with a hammer, and you can murder someone with a hammer. Like, it's a tool that can go in two completely vastly different directions. So I'm both excited for it and kind of terrified. Like, what are we going down? Like, what is coming next? Yeah. So anyway, I was just, it was really exciting and interesting to hear him talk about that, even just a little bit that he did. But look up on YouTube, IGN First, Gabe Newell interview. It just came out like today or yesterday or something. It's pretty cool. Get you thinking. Definitely makes me want to look up more brain interface development technology. Anyway, we are coming up on time. And if you guys want me to keep going, I will for a little bit longer. I could do another half hour or so because there's no one after me. If you guys are interested in having me continue to sculpt and chat, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I will bounce here in a moment. Let's see. Sorry, missed you, Gray, on a couple things. Let's go back here. Same man, you go back and listen to the work, and it actually took to write music back in the day. Yeah, like the old school gems, Tarantino. Yeah, soundtracks. Yeah, yeah, he has some great choice of music. People are eventually going to have problems knowing if they're in reality or virtual reality, messing with the brain. Yeah, man. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's another reason, one of many reasons why I love that movie. The first one especially. Just the concepts there were prophetic almost. Just really engaging, and it's such a multi-leveled, brilliant story. If anyone somehow has lived under a rock and hasn't seen The Matrix, or they thought they didn't like it or didn't get it the first time, please do yourself a favor and go back and watch The Matrix with probably a renewed sense of awareness. It is a phenomenal film with so many deep layers. I mean, look up what the name Morpheus means, like where it comes from. Neo, anagram for one. It's just, there's so many cool the Trinity. I mean, there's just so many really fascinating, interesting, brilliant ideas that were plugged into that movie, and none of the sequels were anywhere close to it. Yeah, just freaking awesome movie. It's funny because Gabe actually was talking about that today, and he kind of critiqued it too. He was like, well, it missed a lot of interesting points, that really it missed the interesting stuff with the brain neural interface. And I'm like, well, I get what he's saying, but at the same time, I think there's a population of us that are super nerds about that would find that fascinating. And if they found a way to really, I guess, articulate it and ramp up the audience at that level, it would be interesting. Kind of the way Michael Crichton does in his writing, but even then it can get heavy-handed, where you have or Tom Clancy, you get a lot of heavy-handed exposition and a lot of detail, and you lose a lot of people because they're like, this is getting too heavy, I'm not interested. Let's get back to the adventure, let's get back to some progression in the story. And while those of us who are nerds for this kind of stuff just eat it up, and then that enhances our appreciation for X, Y, and Z down the road, there's a huge population. The general populace would not be happy to tolerate that level of nerddom and detail. So I get why The Matrix didn't go into that depth for sure. But I agree with him that there's definitely some depth more that they could have gone into that would have been interesting. But The Matrix is just great for a visceral action movie as well. Like, you don't have to look at those deeper levels of philosophy and theology and eschatology. You don't have to go into those crazy deep levels, or even myth and legend. You can just appreciate it as a raw, visceral action movie. So it goes in many different directions. But anyway, if you haven't seen The Matrix for some reason, go see it. It's freaking awesome. Anyway. Well, we lost about like 10 people. Maybe gained a few along the way. I don't know. All right. Well, I think I might bounce here in a little bit. But yeah, I'm actually really happy that I did this time to... This is totally looking different than what it was. At least on this side, I should say. This big bunch of clouds. And I'm liking that it's flowing into this group much more. I have been planning to do a podcast for a while now, and I think amongst my other projects that I'm doing over this month off sabbatical or so, I may start looking to interview some artists and friends. Now that we're all stuck at our homes, for the most part, or a lot of us are, we can find more time to Skype together and do some recording like that, or Google Hangout or Zoom or whatever might be a good interface for it. So, anyway, much better, but I'm missing that swirl. Oh, the swirl, yeah. Well, I had the swirl over here, and then I think there was some in there. I don't know, there was barely some in there, a few, but yeah, I'm still like trying to get this kind of similar flow without copying this exactly, because I don't want it to be mirrored perfectly. I want there to be a certain level of, randomness to it. I'm not quite happy with some of this stuff in here too. This looks too much like I don't know what the words are looking for, like kind of like stone, stone and mortar, brick and mortar-ish kind of look. I want it to be a little bit more random in there, whatever. But yeah, we're getting there. Again, this is all a long process. But yeah, probably got it. It's like we got a little bit of swirl in here, kind of trailing this guy. But yeah, you're right. Probably should bring back a little bit more in here. And probably push this guy back too, because we got this little one up front. Anyway, guys, I hope everyone's been having a good time, enjoying what they're watching or hearing. For the 60-ish who stuck around for the majority. It's always hard to know exactly what to chat about when some people want technical information about what I'm doing. A lot of them probably know what I'm doing, and it's not that complicated right now compared to other operations you can do in ZBrush and software. So, I don't know. I'm always trying to find that happy balance and also not get too loud with any of my opinions. I'm a pretty opinionated person, but I also try to stay private about a lot of that, because everyone's got their own preference and thoughts, and I don't want to... I'm not going to say I don't want to offend, because it's like everyone can take offense to something. You can go crazy trying to not offend everybody, but at the same time, I don't want to deliberately go after topics of controversy that would just cause people to go crazy. And I'm always representing Pixelogic here, so I do not want to upset people. So anyway, but I'm always up on the news in general, and politics and technology and medicine and animals and nature. And I'm a big nerd. I was a science major in biopremed in college, and then worked in a hospital for years, and then bailed on all that and went into visual effects, and totally changed my pursuit, because I always loved art and I always loved animals and storytelling and movies and games and all that. And then realized, hey, I can make a life out of that. I can make a career. I know what I'm doing. I know what I like. I know other people might like it too. So I've always have a lot of diverse interests and thoughts and ideas on things. But, you got to be judicial about sharing your brain, your inner sanctum. So anyway. But yeah, I hope to keep you guys entertained while this is a slow process. Hopefully the next stuff I'll be tackling here with, like I said, with human likenesses like Keanu Reeves and John Krasinski and others will be, action sequences from those movies and scenarios, what ifs kind of stuff. Hopefully that'll be a little bit more exciting for people to see the process nearly from the ground up, as this already had a certain kind of form to it as I started, because I started this months ago, long before I started streaming. Just going back and forth here with like the /3 brush, which lets you carve in really well, and then the form brush kind of lets you inflate stuff. Move topological versus move are always great friends. Topological lets you focus on more tight topology, of course, hence the name. Move in general just sort of smears everything together, so it doesn't really become as judicial as like move topological. Lets you focus on where you're touching with a more controlled radius. This one is more blunt, regular move. Santa workshop. That's hilarious. Oh, thank you. Appreciate the kind words. I'm trying to make it good. like I said, this is a weird challenge. It's a weird task, especially with it's like, I hate saying like I don't have any art direction. It's like I don't need an art director. It's just when you have art direction, it makes it easier in some cases. But when it's just yourself, I normally find that I love my own choices, of course, where I'm art directed. But here, so I just feel kind of lost. I'm like, you know what I mean? There's no roadmap. Clouds is very amorphous. I mean, I could look at more clouds and maybe that would give me more ideas. I'm not looking at reference right now, so it's all just kind of feeling it out, feeling where it's flowing from. Maybe I should start looking at more references of clouds again. But then I feel like I don't want to just create what I'm looking at. You know what I mean? I want there to be some imagination and some happy accidents and flow. And so that's where it's just go through back and forth in this weird kind of place of I would like some more direction here and figuring out things to my own like direction, like just to know more of where I really want to go with this in the forms. And then another part of me is like, well, I don't want too much control either, because then I don't want to just replicate something, because that's what I kind of hate about working as an artist in any studio is when I'm not being able to be a designer. You know, a lot of times the 3D modelers don't get to do concept art, and I was always a big fan of concept art since I was a kid. But I'm not the greatest. At least I never really didn't really want to be the greatest at just Photoshop painting. And there's some amazing, crazy good artists out there that do that exclusively. But I like the utility and the multifunctionality of being able to 3D model something and then, of course, 3D print it, or just put it into an amazing two-dimensional image. So that's what drew me to the modeling side. But sadly, a lot of modelers, a ton of them are not. They're not hired as designers. So while we can design our own things, of course, and often do in our own time, when you're in a cog or when you're a part of a cog in the machine of a studio, and that's not knocking, it's just what it is. A lot of times it's the job. You don't get to make those giant creative choices or experiment like I am now. And so then part of that means you're not honing that skill as much, A. And then B, it also means that you just don't have that freedom, unfortunately. Even if you do have some good ideas, you can suggest them, but often art directors already approved, and directors and other people involved approved the design from the concept side. So you have to adhere to it. It's just a job. But then that also means that you don't get that much creative freedom, if much at all, in sculpting your characters or objects, whatever. So it can be very limiting and can be in times very frustrating as a creative working in that environment. So that's why, again, also I'm like, I keep thinking about doing likenesses, and I'm like, I'm excited about the likenesses I want to do only because I like the story that they're contained in and the world that they're a part of, the films, because I'm such a film nut. But on the other side of it, it's like, I don't know how much I'm going to enjoy. I don't know. I got a lot of satisfaction out of doing like Ewan McGregor's likeness and Harrison Ford's, working with the scan data from that. That was pretty awesome. But I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Matrix and A Quiet Place. So bummed The Quiet Place had to get delayed too. I'm crazy enough. I was just like, yep, I'll risk going and get a virus. I want to go see this movie now. I think John Krasinski and Emily Blunt are a freaking awesome team. I think they kick ass. And the first movie was incredible overall. And I'm really looking forward to the second one. And from the initial reactions that I've heard of people seeing it in the press, it delivers, kicks ass. So Cillian Murphy's in there, a couple other big actors. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty exciting stuff. I love just going to the movie and being, escapism. I love that thrill of like finding a new intelligently executed story and world to engage with. I really enjoy that. And I love a good scary thriller, a good horror movie. I would almost not categorize A Quiet Place as a horror movie, even though it does fit into that genre. I would say it's more of a thriller, really. It's not. You're not going to go to bed with nightmares so much as it's just feeling tension, And that intensity is, I think, what I really enjoy. Is that roller coaster, badass, exciting, nail biting kind of ride. Excuse me. Santa Workshop sculpt some hidden places for LEDs. It will look amazing after print. Yeah, thanks. No, that's the idea for sure. I'm definitely going to be putting LEDs. I'm not sure if Santa Workshop, if you were here for any of my other streams or have watched any of them, but that's the idea, is that, yeah, this is going to be lit from the inside. Definitely going to have 2 tiny LEDs like right behind the eyes here, so that they really feel that, like, that just pure white out, just solid bam, you know, with the eyes of, like when you saw if you remember the original Mufasa's eyes, just like God mode in Doom. Like the eyes are just, there's no pupils, no sclera, it's just lights, and I love that. Or if you've played any of the Ori game now, the new one, there's this bear that you encounter at one point, giant bear, because you're a little spirit creature, and it opens its eyes at one point, and it's just light. It's just fucking awesome. Or like Secret of Nim, right? The owl in Secret of Nim. Oh god, I love that movie. My buddy on Facebook, Max Smith, this fantastic artist. He's made this incredible series. I told him I want to make this a movie. I want to like fucking direct your movie. He has this incredibly beautiful, awesome series called Scurry, and it's all about a post-apocalyptic world told from the story of mice. It's a lot like Secret of Nim, but like modern day or like near future. So no humanity, all animals. They all talk, but they're not that much or anthropomorphized. They pretty much look like real animals, which is what I love. And kind of like Lion King, I guess, a lot like the new Lion King. And I would imagine it probably falling somewhere between there and Paddington Bear, the new Paddington Bear movies. So you'd have a certain level of animated face, so it has emotion, but still very hyper-realistic, like super photorealistic, gorgeous. And he has such rich colors and such great, beautiful, complementary designs of light and color and shadow and dark. It's just, he's a brilliant artist. I think he's far... what's the word I'm looking for? Not underestimated. It's just, I don't think he gets as much love out there as he should, I feel. So look up Mac Smith Scurry. His books are awesome. His illustrations are gorgeous. It's like Secret of Nim 2.0, like Secret of Nim for today. Anyway, so yeah, LED wise, this is going to have two powerful small LEDs behind his eyes, and I'm going to have to gauge that thickness so that you get that right punch, but not so much that you're like, you know, I definitely want it diffused so you're not blinded by when you look at an LED straight on, it hurts. So that's going to be the eyes. Then beneath Mufasa, and I think around his mane, I'm going to have several LEDs, like a string kind of lining them and diffused well so that it really feels like there is a kind of like his hair and mane in there has a certain level of light flowing outward from it. And then there'll probably be a more large central LED that will be somewhere around where his heart is, and that'll kind of be like the soul, the core of the soul, kind of, you know, like a star pushing out from there. And then from there, I've thought about. I'm not saying I thought, like I haven't decided fully, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to have a large chain of LEDs in the clouds. There'll be probably maybe one or two at the base here that will diffuse large amounts of light coming from Mufasa as a more yellow, warmish kind of candlelight quality. But I want strong amounts of very almost maybe I'll probably use EL wire maybe. I'm not really sure exactly yet, but I want there to be pre-designed paths for lightning so that when they're not flashing, it just looks like the clouds are just showing a normal amount of light from within them. But then at random moments, the controllers will set off like a fire flickering effect, except there will be blue light. So it'll be like a very like cobalt, beautiful kind of lightning that kind of will just sort of gently, you know, flash and flicker inside these large flanking clouds, both on his left and right, and probably even a few below down here as well. And then beneath this, I have a whole plan for a base below this that will have the title, Lion King, and probably be some sort of translucent color, almost like the rain coming down or something, or I'm not really sure exactly, but there's definitely going to be something below this that will have the title, and then maybe of course my info and whatever. So it's going to be a pretty epic piece when it's done, for sure. I'm trying to take my LED game up a little bit in this one compared to what I did with Trico, where it was just, he had the same kind of thing, the lights that were just LEDs diffused through retinas that were 3D printed, that were glow in the dark, and then on the front of those were true three-dimensional anatomically correct eyes that would then reflect the light through them in an accurate way, that if you could illuminate your retinas the way they would look through the actual physical light deforming of an eyeball lens. So it's pretty cool to actually do that and have it execute and work on the first try. It was pretty fulfilling. So there's a lot of planning involved in that, though. So I think for the same thing for this, I'm going to do a lot of like experimentation and maybe just test print the inside, the interior, and then wire it up and do a couple tests like I did with Trico's head. So yeah, and so if anyone's wondering too, wow, we still got people here. All right. Oh, sweet, yeah, dude, yeah. Ico games, like that's the other thing, man. I'm working on a short film based on Last Guardian, because I would kill to work on that, to direct it, man. It's like, oh my god, I love that film. I mean, the game so much. They're all good, but man, Last Guardian for me was like the epitome of it. Just freaking gorgeous and so moving, and just such a grand adventure. So many answers given at the end that you have questions about in the beginning too. It's just brilliant. Yeah, good taste, man. My first time on my live stream. Well, thanks, man. Well, thank you and welcome, and I hope you come back for the next one. So for anyone out there still who would be interested, I'm just going to post my social media stuff so you can enjoy what I'm working on and follow along. I'm going to try to post a lot more actually now during this whole lockdown scene, since I know a lot of us are stuck at home, or at least limited in where we can go. So I want to try to provide some more entertainment value for you guys. Santa's Workshop. My next stream will either be for sure 2 weeks from now, so not this coming Wednesday, but the following. I usually do every other Wednesday, but considering we all have a lot more time, at least I do, I'm probably going to see if I can do it next Wednesday as well, just to keep up the pace a little bit more and, you know, keep people entertained. So yeah, for anyone who wants to keep up with me, so Instagram, I'm Daniel Lion Arts, and then Twitter at Lion Arts, and Facebook there you go. And I have a Facebook Lion Arts page as well, but I hardly am on that thing, and it never really seems to be that useful. And then my own website for those interested, lionarts.com. And people always ask, why is it Lion Arts? And they don't really pay attention to my last name. It's De León, which means of lion in Spanish, so I figured, lucky to get that badass last name, might as well buy a site that kind of complements it. So, but I was born here, so it's like, you know, whatever. I wasn't going to go like De León site, whatever.com. I'd be like, De León Arts. I don't know. It would work, but whatever. Anyway, there you go. So yeah, this is coming along. Where are we at now? All right, I'll go like till 10:30ish. We're at 10:22 right now, Pacific. And for all the folks, the fine ladies and gentlemen out there, thank you for hanging out and checking this out. Like I said, I hope it's been some entertainment value to you. Hopefully I've said something that made you think. Oh, crap. Here we go. Dang it. Crashed. Let's see if we save, though. Yeah. Yes. All right. I'm just going to bounce back here then 1 sec. Hey, look at that. That's my background. All right. I have something that Pixelogic has nailed is their recovery system has kicked ass in the last couple versions of ZBrush, where if it crashes, which invariably any program does, it saves itself before it decides to kiss your work goodbye. So there we are, back up and running in no time. But I am going to save this now so that I do not have that happen again, because sometimes it doesn't save and then you're effed. What is today? Today's the 18th, right? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so yeah, like I said, we'll go around till 10:30ish. So I was telling my friends, like, they're like, how long are you going to be streaming? I'm like, well, I know there's no one after me, so I'll go until I feel the time, whether I want to itch to get off because I want to go do something else, or if I'm feeling the groove, I'm in the zone to keep going. And I'm sort of getting in that zone now, so I figured why not just keep going for the time we have, since no one else is in queue. Santa's Workshop. Used ZBrush a long time ago. Now Modo. Must try again. Yeah, dude. Or do that. Modo is awesome. Like I was saying earlier, I love Modo, but ZBrush is just a whole other animal. It's just its own thing. It's hard for any other program to really compete with this. Every other program has some sort of sculpting feature here and there, but none of them have this kind of level of responsiveness and just the insane number of polygons you can have. You know, I mean, you can go into Sculpting HD where you're like dealing with billions of polygons. That's freaking nuts. So ZBrush is still leaps and bounds beyond competition. Now, what I would encourage Pixelogic to do is make a version that can compete with some of the... there's an app out there, what's it called? Don't want to detract from you guys, but no one is competing in this space, so Pixelogic should do this. What is this thing called? Forger. That's right. It's called Forger, and it's like a iPhone app, iPad app, and it's like a mobile ZBrush. It's really, really close for a mobile version. And I'm like, dude. So, message to Ofair and the powers that be at Pixelogic. You guys should make a mobile version of this. It would kill, and it'd be another stream of revenue for the company, which would be awesome. That would be so cool. So if we could be doing this on an iPad, because I know I'm lucky to have a Mobile Studio Pro, which is basically a whole computer with a Wacom Cintiq built into it. So it's just a tablet, just a screen with a bunch of buttons, and I can bring on a Bluetooth keyboard, and it's a full PC. So I get to work on ZBrush mobily anywhere. But I know a lot of people just don't have that kind of, you know, money to spend on that kind of thing. So a more ubiquitous tool that's already installed in a user base is an iPad. So if you guys made a iPad app, I think business-wise it would be a very smart move, and considering the brand name recognition, it would sell like crazy. So I don't know, just throwing it out there, guys. It would be a smart move for the monies. Can never hurt to make more. Anyway, yeah. Being able where and when to sculpt whenever you want is awesome. It's a joy. Tried today before my stream. Man, back to ZBrush UI. Yeah, I know. If you're familiar with Modo, I've always said this because of at least the color choices in Modo and in ZBrush. When you started out, you got the orange and the gray, and then you get kind of this like yellowish Half-Life orange yellow kind of coloration in gray in Modo. So they almost look like if Autodesk had Maya and ZBrush had a baby, you'd have Modo. It's kind of like that, I felt, because Modo has a lot more intuitive interface, and I really enjoyed Modo when I was working with it. I think it's just a more well-designed UI structurally, and it had a really incredibly beautiful renderer and viewport compared to Maya. Honestly, I think Autodesk's been slacking a lot with Maya, and I feel like they need to revamp. I mean, feel almost like they'd have to like restructure the whole thing, you know, like just redo the entire interface to really, and that means rewrite the whole code, I guess, which is nuts. I know, because it's a matrix on top of an older matrix on top of another older matrix. So they just, Maya often feels like a mess whenever they update it, because then you got to wait for patch number 1, number 2, number 3, and you know, I always wait to upgrade on my Maya versions usually, because you know invariably they're going to have a couple patches to fix whatever they didn't catch when all the real world users get a hold on it. But yeah, Modo's awesome, dude. ZBrush is great though. Like I said, it's just you can get things out of this program that you really just can't get anywhere else for this kind of fidelity and control. But yeah, the interface is weird. I know. I mean, everyone says that. I guess I just was one of the lucky ones that I jumped on it when I did years ago, and I was coming from a more traditional background. First, I was doing like traditional fine art, so like drawing live drawing, traditional skills, and then moved into Photoshop. I was actually dabbling. I always drew since I was a kid, but then I always got more serious about it too, probably in high school. Even though I was thinking about going into medicine then, and then Photoshop. I remember even before Photoshop took as much of a stronghold as it did, I was messing with some other programs like Photo Studio, I think was one of them, like back in the day on my old my dad's NEC computer. So I was always experimenting with art programs even back then. And then Photoshop came along, started dabbling with that. And I think back then we also just had Alias before it became, because it was Alias Lightwave, or there's Lightwave, and then there was Alias, and it was Alias before it became Maya. and I dabbled with a demo of that, but I just, again, I was younger. My brain just didn't like the menus. It didn't make as much sense to me as it does now, obviously. So I stayed away and just stayed in 2D for a long time. And then I think it was like Imagine FX magazine, or I looked at that and looked at like Advanced Photoshop magazine. I think it was Imagine FX. Somebody was very smart, and they just decided to merge sculpting something in ZBrush really quick to create a two-dimensional, very accurate 3D looking image. And then they exported out that render and then painted over that as a guide and as a base for their Photoshop painting for concept art. And I immediately saw that it was like digital clay. And that was just, my mind was blown. Like I had to learn what this program was about, and that's kind of, I think, where my gateway drug, my entry into addiction to digital sculpting began. I had sculpted a bit before by hand when I was younger, and I feel like I can always sculpt well by hand if I need to, but it really doesn't make sense to do that these days for almost everything. I think it'd be better to do it digitally, so you can undo, you can refine it, you can get to infinitesimal detail that you can never get by hand. Unless you're one of those incredible Chinese artists who sculpt on a grain of rice. I don't know if you've ever seen those guys, but they're these incredible Asian artists who can. I say that only because I've only seen Asian men do this, like Chinese men. They have these grains of rice, and you almost have to use a magnifying glass to see what they produce. But on a grain of rice, they sculpt some of the most insane, tiny, infinitesimal detail. But I've never seen that almost anywhere else. And so, again, you can go to that kind of level of detail with a computer. You have almost infinite, really, depth. You're only limited, really, by your printer and what it can 3D print out. But now with Formlabs, you can get some in bananas level detail, like micro detail. Even with the Form 2, I was able to push it where you could see the striations and feathers of Trico. And I modeled it in there, and then I actually could use a magnifying glass to see even the tiniest feathers have all the striations in there still. It's crazy. So yeah, so now it's just like ZBrush has just become my mainstay tool. It's my bread and butter. And it's both my tool for employment, and it's also my tool for pleasure and fun. It's just, you can do so much with this thing. You can just have such a joy in creating your own pieces, and not just art, obviously, but you can use it to create and engineer things that can be used in the real world as well for whatever. I remember one time I was giving my dog a bath in my tub, and I shouldn't have had my jeans on, but I did, and I had my belt on, and so the lip of the back of my belt was in between the toilet and the tub when I was giving him a bath, and I stood up and I ripped the leather, and everything was so tight, it just ripped the seat. I stood up so quickly, it ripped the seat hinge off of one side of the toilet, and so I was like, shit, now I gotta go buy a new hinge for my toilet seat. And then I stopped and was like, what am I doing? I have a 3D printer. I went online, and literally 15 minutes after that, I was finishing printing a hinge for my toilet seat that I installed myself right after that. And that to me was such a stupid, simple little thing, but I thought, man, we are living in the future right now. Like, it's not the most impressive object at all, but it's just the practicality of certain things like that you can just produce on the fly. And it's only going to get better from here, as we have different machines, and as CNC machines become more ubiquitous as well. The array of materials you can print with that, or not print really, you can carve out, I should say, mill out. It's pretty awesome. We live in an insane time. Hope someday you'll have an opportunity to direct your movie. Thanks, man. I hope so too. I'm working toward that now. Came from Lightwave after Brad and Alan. Same. Yeah, sweet. Yeah, I know a lot of people love Lightwave. It's still something out there. It's funny. I remember speaking of Last Guardian and Team Ico games, Fumito Ueda. I remember seeing behind the scenes back in the day. He was working on Last Guardian in Lightwave. I think he actually modeled Trico in Lightwave, and a bunch of other elements in the game in Lightwave too. So, funny little fact there. It's kind of cool. So Lightwave is still being used. Just find it so strange. But apparently it has tools apparently that just are apparently really just unique and different and nice and fun to use for people. I guess similar, not exactly all the same, but there's tools that are unique to it. Blender has this grease pen where you can draw lines out and then turn them into planes or polygons and really quickly like go from a 2D sketch into a 3D object. Stuff like that, I think, or you can I mean, I'm not a Lightwave expert, but there was a guy at my previous job that he was still working in Lightwave, and he showed me some things. I can't remember all that what they were now, but he was just saying how they were pretty incredible, easy to use, user-friendly tools. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. So Santa Workshop, that's a fun name, I gotta say. Do you guys, do you create something that I might know, or are you in film or product design or all of the above? Can you say? Is it all hush hush? Yeah. Okay then. Yes to all of that. All right. Gotcha. You're working on something so specific. I work with Lego. Oh, cool. Yeah, I have a friend, acquaintance that works there too. She's we don't talk a lot, but we see each other usually all the time at Comic-Con. And I'm blanking on her name right now, but she's a cutie, sweetheart. She's very successful over there too. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name right now. I think she's well known though too. So you probably, if you work at Lego, you probably know her. 3D, it's coming along slowly. No, wait. Sorry, maybe I'm maybe I'm misunderstanding you. Do you work with Lego like officially the company, or you're saying you work with Lego like you build with bricks physically, or you're actually like employed by a Lego company, like work with them in that sense? Because I've seen some really awesome people do some incredible like banana level designs, like just crazy designs for Legos as well. Like, create whole scenes and cities and all kinds of stuff, and it's like a legit art form in its own way. It's crazy. Physically. Okay, cool. Yeah. So you're a multi-form, multidisciplinary artist. That's cool. This looks like some sort of totally crazy tie-dyed slash... You know what this makes me think of is like that grotesquely food-colored ice cream that's out there. It's not sherbet. I forget what it probably just tasted like chemicals, but I remember there's some ice cream out there that looks like this, where it's like all these crazy different colors just mashed together. Yeah, it's just chemicals and food coloring and sugar. But it has such a wild look. You're just like, wow. Or it's like if Dippin' Dots had melted together. I don't know. It's crazy. It's all the different polygroups from all the different spheres just kind of smear together. But if I do an auto group, boop, there we go. Shows you what mesh is continuous and which mesh is separate based on polygroups. So we solo it out. These guys are free floating. That one's just barely connected by a few polys. But then I'll probably eventually I'll merge this down with this guy, with this swirly guy. Haha, there you go. Cool. Yeah, man. ZBrush is it is its own animal, man. But yeah, jump back into it. It's worth it for sure. I started in Sculptress when ZBrush didn't have Dynamesh. Yeah, wow, that's back in the day. Yeah, I remember before they acquired Sculptress. I remember when that came out, I was messing with it too. It was pretty cool. It was like Dynamesh on all the time, basically. Yeah. It was dynamic tessellation. It's pretty cool. Speaking of which, I should probably do Tessimate with some of this stuff again too. Probably a good way to develop this. I keep forgetting that's there because I just don't use it much. There's a few applications that I shouldn't say few. I mean, it's great for concepting. I just don't concept that way a lot. I should probably experiment with that in the next stream and before so I can nail it. But yeah, Testimation is it's pretty cool. All right. We are at 10:44 Pacific. And we are decreasing in the numbers. So yeah, I think I'm going to call it. made some progress. Not exactly where I was thinking we'd go, but hey, it's moving forward. We're going to be seeing some bigger changes here soon as we start to get a little bit more of this form down and then start doing more details. We'll come back around to Mufasa and then detail up some of this area down here and come back and tackle this side. Mostly this chunk here in the middle and toward the back. But we're getting there. Slowly. All right, all you crazy coronavirus survivors. We will get through this. I trust that everyone is staying well and taking care of themselves. Please don't gather in huge groups. And just be healthy. Get your sleep. Be smart. Be kind. And, yeah. Moving along. Thanks, Santa Workshop. It's nice to chat with you too. Yeah, glad everyone enjoyed it. The Gray J. Have a good one. Fun to watch. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Same to you. Save this quick before I forget. And yeah, I will be back in 2 weeks, if not next week, Wednesday. Who knows? Maybe even sooner. I got to talk to Kyle and the powers that be over at Pixo and see what we can arrange, since they have a set schedule in place as it is, but there's a lot of open slots that I could fill. So we'll see. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a good night or day, depending where in the world you are. And yeah, you ladies and gents, take care, and I will see you guys again soon. All right. Peace.